السلام عليكم. الحضور أرجع التوجه إلى قاعة الحفلات.
Score was improved for those studies were assessed after 1 month compared with 3 months. So in recent years, the low-intensity shockwave therapy has increased, studies has been increased dramatically. The set of parameters and the treatment protocols are important and they need to be standardized. Additional studies are needed to explore the influence of age and various comorbidities, and it's clear that low-intensity shockwave therapy may be a potential first-line choice of non-invasive treatment for patients with erectile dysfunction. Now we move to the alprostadil cream. The idea in this cream that it provides the efficacy of alprostadil in an easy-to-use formulation that does not involve systemic administration or the more invasive local application. The formulation contains alprostadil together with an enhancer which temporarily loosens the tight junctions in the skin epithelial cells and improve the diffusion. During clinical trials, as you can see here, the EF domain has been increased when compared to the placebo, and the total IIF score also increased in comparison to placebo. In the placebo, only 26% said that they have been improved, while this figure was 83 for the alprostadil cream. We use it in patients with different comorbidities like cardiovascular patients, diabetic patients, and you can see there is a significant difference between the two. Testosterone replacement for patients with diabetes mellitus is a very important subject because our area is one of the most areas with more prevalent diabetes. As you can see, 6 of the most countries with incidence of diabetes are Arabian countries, and in all studies, the testosterone level for hypogonadal men is lower than those with normal testosterone. Yes. This is the mechanism of the relationship between testosterone and insulin resistance. But the important thing is that testosterone replacement does not only improve the erectile function, but it leads also to improvement of metabolic control. As in this study, those patients were, the red ones opted not to use testosterone replacement, but those with the yellow ones who were treated with long-acting testosterone, and as you can see that glycemic control much improved. This is also for the lipid profile, blood pressure, waist circumference. And before I leave the podium, I would like to invite you all to the fourth biennial meeting of the Middle East Society of Sexual Medicine, which will be in Abu Dhabi next September, inshallah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, unfortunately, Ali Hussein will not be able to make it, so we'll have Dr. Mustafa Al-Barbar, from pediatric urologist from Prince Sultan Medical Center. Well, you talk about pediatric urology continuum from childhood to adulthood. But please be concise to time because we have the opening ceremony.
I was talking about this a while ago. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أسعد الله صباحكم وتقبل الله أعمالكم في هذه المدينة الطاهرة. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and dear Chairman and dear audience, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to present one or to touch one of the subjects that are actually not being touched, although it is important, which is the transfer or the transition of pediatric urology patients to an adult urology, especially those with major congenital problems. So the recognition of special aspects of illnesses in children are unique and have been recognized for decades. And this has led to the foundation of specialized hospital for children since the 19th century. But with development and the realization that those children have had holistic care during their childhood, and the recognition that their medical needs, especially those patients with major congenital anomalies, they will continue for the rest of their life. The problem is to identify clinicians with knowledge and interest to continue such care. As we know, children do not become adults overnight. They have to pass through adolescence, which is a unique phase of passing from childhood to adulthood that is easily recognizable and creates unique problem in the management of chronic illnesses. I passed through this phase. All of us has passed through this adolescence phase. So we know that recognized for the provision of this transitional care has been known for decades, but till now the provision of this care is limited worldwide. And this was reflected on the paucity of literature talking about this transitional care. And looking at this diagram, and that compares the publication of transitional urology compared to the total publication, it is clear that there is publication of urologic transition is far less beyond the total publications. Although internationally even, some of the authorities has mandated that, like the Health People 2020 initiative in the United States, has mandated that youth with special healthcare needs receive the services necessary to make transition to all aspects of adult life, including healthcare, work, and independence. Unfortunately, only 40% of young adults with special needs are receiving the tools needed for transition. So, as we said, it is a challenging time in anybody's life. Those adolescents, they usually deliberately resist medical need and care despite careful explanation, for example, the compliance with CIC. And why is this? Because of the natural tendency in those adolescents to risk-taking behavior. The desire for normality, they want to be normal as their peers. And they want to do things by themselves rather than relying on parental prompting. It is a challenging time for the young adults, for their parents, and for the healthcare team too. So, a lot of patients that we see, they have a desire to remain under pediatric urology care. And this is, on one hand, is good, but on the other hand, is bad. Why it is good? Because they usually express that they were happy with the care that had been provided, but bad because those parents and patients and even the physician, they fail to recognize that there is a change in need. There is new issues are coming, fertility, pregnancy, and other issues. So this is the difference between pediatric and adult care. Usually pediatric management is, patient management is covered by a large team with different disciplines, and that is often led by one surgeon. But the adult care is usually smaller team with a subspecialty expertise. In pediatric, it is parent-focused, but in adult care, it is patient-focused. There is good access to psychology in pediatric, and it is often limited in adult care, and the follow-up in pediatrics is usually regular and active follow-up, but in adults, because of the increasing number of patients, that means the busy clinics, which end up into a longer review intervals and may result in less close follow-up. So, the pediatric urology is accustomed to the care of congenital anomaly and to have a patient-centered relationship, and usually is capable of having the knowledge and experience and concentrate and focuses on integrative care. The adult urology care is mainly based on post-pubertal expertise and depends on urological screening care and concentrate mainly on adult physiology like the development of BPH and erectile dysfunction. So, the urologic congenitalism combines both the skill set of both pediatric and adult urology. What is the purpose of transition? To ensure that patients to continue to receive the best possible care and to prepare and allow all patients to understand their diagnosis, treatment rather than the parents, and to assume greater input and responsibility in healthcare decisions, and to manage their expectations. What do they want to expect in the future? Again, fertility, work, cosmesis, all those aspects of care in the future. What might happen when the transition fails? Either this child might continue as a cocoon in pediatric nest, or he is dumped to an adult without any preparation. And this dumping has usually a poor outcome, and many patients get lost, and those who return later in life, they usually express sad story about their management in a non-specialist unit. So if a child is in need of continuing medical help in adulthood, there are three possible pathways. The first pathway is either to move an adult doctor in the same specialty, like diabetes mellitus. The second pathway is to find a specialist with the chronic condition in question. The third pathway is to rely on a non-specialist care. The first option, unfortunately, none of the conditions that appear in pediatric, or most of the conditions that appear in pediatric, does not have an adult equivalent. There is no bladder extrophy in adults. The consequences of obstructive uropathy caused by posterior urethral valve is different from the consequences of bladder outflow obstruction caused by BVH. The sequelae of urogenic bladder in spinal dysraphism cases is different from the sequelae in spinal cord injured patients. The third pathway, which is relying on a non-specialist care, usually will be unsatisfactory because those conditions that will require a lifelong care are rare.
So that this non-specialist will not have the experience to manage those kind of cases. So we are left with the second possibility, which is finding a specialist in a chronic condition, which is, but it is essential that this specialist understand the impact of animals in adulthood. What are the barriers to transition? There are few dedicated clinics. Although some of the conditions that appear in adulthood have an adult nature, but those conditions cannot be considered separately from the original congenital animal. There is lack of training, and it is unclear how many adolescent urologists is needed. There is a few places to have an adolescent fellowship, adolescent urology fellowship. The third barrier to transition is the strong attachment to pediatric staff. The fear of change. They have been with the pediatric urology for 14, 15 years, 16 years, and it will be a difficult time for them to change. And the geographical aspects, it plays also a role in, as a barrier to transition. So how this transition process goes? It goes through phases. The first phase should start at 11 to 12 years. And at that time, the assessment by pediatric urologist for the long-term needs. The second phase, between the 13 and 14 years, the child or this adolescent should start attending the transition clinic. And it usually takes 4 to 5 visits for him to develop a good relation with the new urologist. The third phase is the transfer phase, where at this phase the decision is mainly made by adolescent urologist, but still the pediatric urologist remain involved. And the last phase is the transfer to complete the adolescent urology clinic, and at that stage decision made by adolescent/adult urologist. So, but to have this transition, we need a proper setting. So, and one of the settings is the transition clinic, and those people that are working into the clinic, they need to understand the difference between transition and transfer. Transition is the physical move between specialists, but the transition is the phase of acquiring gradual responsibility of healthcare decision. It has to have a nice dedicated place with a privacy, and we should do our best to minimize the number of moves between clinicians. The medical staff who's carrying this clinic should have the interest. They should have the training, and they should have close working relationship between himself and other urologist specialists in case it is needed, and also with non-urologic specialists. Nursing staff also is an important thing, but they need to be knowledgeable with the conditions that they are facing. They need to be supported, and they need to be available. What is the training requirement for a transitional or an adolescent urology? He needs to know, to have a good knowledge of the relevant anomalies in pediatric urology and their management, understand the emotional and physical changes that occur in adolescents, and aboard training in adult urology. What is our requirement here in Saudi Arabia? We know that around more than 45% of our population are below the age of 24 years. And internationally, it is, has been said that one adolescent urology would be enough for each 4 million population. But I think this will not be there is no documentation for this, and there is no calculation in our population, but I think this calculation in the United States will be different from our local experience. So So there are a lot of lists or a lot of list of conditions that we deal as pediatric urologists that will continue the genitourinary system care and also a care beyond the urinary system and needs to involve many other specialists. So take home message, transitional care in urology forms part of a lifelong care of the urologic patients with congenital anomalies. There is no fixed clinic models. Motivated and knowledgeable personnel are the anecdotal elements of success, and the need for multidisciplinary approach that offers the availability of subspecialty surgical skills and in the longer term metric of success may develop. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now our last presenter for this session will be Dr. Ashraf Abu Samra. He'll talk to us about how to face the current BCG changes. Is he not available? Dr. Ashraf Abu Samra.
I don't think he's here. I think we'll adjourn now from the coffee break. But before adjournment, please, all the speakers, we appreciate they can give us, please, their USBs to put it in the laptop, so we don't have wasting time. Also, all of you are invited to the gala dinner tonight. The gala dinner is open for all of you guys, or if you have your spouse or your family, you are also more than welcome to attend. It's going to be, the meeting will be in the M2, the main reception area at 7 o'clock. The buses will leave at 7:15 because there will be Isha prayer, then the traffic will be miserable. The gala dinner is something you enjoy. We have something called Muzbar. It's a special dance from Mecca, زي التحطيب حق المصريين. And it's ساعة الحب وساعة الربي، فنحن هنا عندنا ربي نطلع برا شوية حب قليل، ونحن حنكون خارج الحرم. بالتالي يكون عنده يعني أي كونزرفيشن نحن خارج الحرم، فدونت وري أباوت إت، أوكي؟ راح يكون في اللي يبغى الشيشة برضه في شيشة، لأن الشيشة ممنوعة داخل الحرم، فإحنا حنكون خارج الحرم. all of you are more than welcome. We can adjourn now, but please we should meet here at 11:30 for the opening ceremony with His Excellency, the President of the University. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a coffee break for 15 minutes and come back.
Somebody lost his wallet.
حضرتك عشان بوس
الحرام حيث الجلال والجمال والإعجاز. نرحب بكم بهتاف كل رملة من تراب هذا المكان الطاهر المقدس، وهي تهتف بمبدعها جل جلاله سجوا وحبا وعشقا. نرحب بكم بأبق ورد وأريج زهر. إننا من هذا المكان الطاهر نستشعر عظم إرثنا الحضاري الإسلامي الكبير، ونسعى جاهدين في خدمة الطب، وأخص بالذكر جراحة المسالك البولية. بالله قوم إذا حلوا بمنزلة حل السرور، وسار الجود إنسار، تحيا بهم كل أرض ينزلون بها، كأنهم للبقاع أمطار، ونورهم يهتدي الساري لرؤيته، كأنهم في ظلام الليل أقمار، وتشتهي العين منهم منظرا حسنا، كأنهم في عيون الناس أزهار. لا أوحش الله ربها من زيارتكم، يا من لكم في الحشا والقلب تذكار. خير بداية لهذا الحفل الكريم آيات من الذكر الحكيم يتلوها على مسامعكم الحافظ لكتاب الله وطالب كلية الطب بجامعة أم القرى عبد الرحمن حمصي.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم تر أن الله أنزل من السماء ماء فأخرجنا به ثمرات مختلفا ألوانها، ومن الجبال جدد بيض وحمر مختلف ألوانها وغرابيب سود، ومن الناس والدواب والأنعام مختلف ألوانه كذلك، إنما يخشى الله من عباده العلماء، إن الله عزيز غفور. إن الذين يتلون كتاب الله وأقاموا الصلاة وأنفقوا مما رزقناهم سرا وعلانية يرجون تجارة لن تبور ليوفيهم أجورهم ويزيدهم من فضله، إنه غفور شكور. صدق الله العظيم.
والآن كلمة رئيس المؤتمر سعادة الدكتور أنوار ناصر.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد المبعوث رحمة للعالمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أيها الحفل الكريم، معالي مدير الجامعة، سعادة الإخوة الأفاضل، الدكاترة والباحثين، جميع الحضور، أحييكم بتحية الإسلام، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. نحييكم في هذا المؤتمر ال29 لجمعية جراحة المسالك البولية والكلى، والذي يعقد ولأول مرة في تاريخه في مكة المكرمة في مهبط الوحي والرسالة، في موطن اقرأ التي انبعث منها نور الحق وهداية الخلق وبداية العلم الحقيقي المقرب إلى الله سبحانه وتعالى والذي شع في أرجاء الكون. هنا اقرأ، هنا دين الله، هنا خاتمة الرسالات، هنا حيث تتلى كلمات الوحي: سنريهم آياتنا في الآفاق وفي أنفسهم حتى يتبين لهم أنه الحق. ديننا دين الإسلام هو دين الحياة. ديننا يطلب منا أن نتدبر، أن نتفكر، أن نسعى في طلب العلم. هذه الآيات الكريمات فيها قوله تعالى: إنما يخشى الله من عباده العلماء. العلماء كلمة كبيرة عظيمة. العلم هو العلم الحقيقي الذي يدلك على الله أيا كان هذا العلم، سواء كان في الحلال والحرام أو كان في التدبر في مخلوقات الله سبحانه وتعالى. الله سبحانه وتعالى الذي خلق الكون وخلق الإنسان هو الذي أنزل القرآن. هذه الآيات في الكون وهذه الآيات في القرآن، فلا بد لهذه الآيات أن تتطابق، ولذلك جاء قوله تعالى: سنريهم آياتنا في الآفاق وفي أنفسهم. وقال جل جلاله: يرفع الله الذين آمنوا منكم والذين أوتوا العلم درجات. فالعلم هو طريق معرفتنا بالله. وكما نحن نسعى لتخريج فقهاء يدلون الناس على الإيمان وعلى الأمانة في محراب المسجد، نحن مطالبون أن نخرج أطباء يطبقون منهج الحق سبحانه وتعالى ويعلمون الأمانة والإيمان في واقع عملي. وخاصة معاشر الأطباء في معاملتكم لمرضاكم، لا يوجد لدينا فصل بين الدين وبين الحياة. ديننا هو حياتنا. أي واحد منا يكلف بعمل لا بد أن يكون له تأثير، تكون له بصمة، وإلا فما الحاجة أن يمسك بعمل ويقوم بالأعمال المعتادة إن لم يسعى لتطوير ما أوكل إليه. نحن ولله الحمد في كلية الطب بجامعة أم القرى في خلال سنوات محدودة أو معدودة ارتقت الكلية بفضل الله سبحانه وتعالى وتوفيقه لنا، وحصلنا على الاعتماد الألماني العالمي، وحدثنا المنهج، منهج كلية الطب بالتعاون مع جامعة UCL University College of London. هناك نقطة أساسية في هذا المنهج، وبإمكان أي واحد التعرف على هذا المنهج بزيارة ركن الجامعة. هذا المنهج يعتمد على التكامل بين كافة التخصصات. فكان من ثمرة هذا التعاون أننا أزلنا الحواجز والحوائط بين التخصصات المختلفة، وأصبح تعاون تكامل بين الجميع. أنتج هذا التعاون أبحاث متعددة ومميزة، ولذلك نفخر ولأول مرة بعدد كبير من الأبحاث مضى خلال السنوات القليلة حتى ترون اليوم، وإن شاء الله الإحصائيات أظهرت أنه أكبر عدد للأبحاث كان لمشاركة كلية الطب بجامعة أم القرى ولله الحمد. فنسعى جميعا لتكامل المعرفة بين كافة التخصصات وبين كافة المجالات. الحمد لله هذا مؤتمر حوى تنوع ثقافي، تنوع من بلدان شتى، من مدارس مختلفة في تخصصات ومهارات متعددة، هي التي ارتقت بهذا المؤتمر ولله الحمد. يعد أعرق مؤتمر سعودي عالمي في مملكتنا الحبيبة. قبل أن أختم كلمتي أحب أن أتوجه بالشكر لمعالي مدير الجامعة على رعايته لهذا المؤتمر ودعمه الكبير له، وهذه ولله الحمد هي سياسة حكومة مولاي خادم الحرمين الشريفين في دعم العلم والعلماء والباحثين، رؤية جدية نسعى جميعا إن شاء الله لتحقيق طموحات هذه الرؤية. وأشكر الشركات الداعمة، شركاء لنا في هذا المؤتمر وفي هذا المجال، لهم جزيل الشكر. وسنذكر أهم هذه الشركات الآن وبقية الشركات بإذن الله لاحقا. وأخص بالشكر من يعني بذلوا الوقت والغالي والرخيص لإظهار المؤتمر بهذا المستوى. إخوة يعني كنا كالعائلة الواحدة، نتواصل باستمرار. اللجنة التنظيمية التي شرفت برئاستها عملوا ليل نهار. بروفيسور حسن فارسي، أستاذنا القدير البروفيسور عبد الملك الطيب، كان لهم مجهودات كبيرة يصلون الليل والنهار. رئيس الجمعية أخي الدكتور رائد أزهر، شكر خاص. لابد أن يعني من لم يشكر الناس لم يشكر الله. الدكتور عبد العزيز بعظيم ليل نهار وهو يتابع تنظيم المعرض والبرنامج التعليمي. وهناك لا ماني شايف الدكتور تركي المحيسن بيتحرك في كل مكان. تركي المحيسن بذل كثير من وقته وجهده عشان يضع هذا اليوم في هذا المؤتمر. سعينا خصيصا انه لما نمسك المؤتمر يكون في شيء جديد كما هو جديد في المكان. هذا المكان الطاهر هو مصداق قوله تعالى: يجبى إليه ثمرات كل شيء رزقا من لدنا. الثمرات من كل شيء تأتي إلى مكة، ثمرات العلم، ثمرات الرجال، ثمرات الأفكار، ثمرات التقدم والتطور تأتي إلى مكة. تبدأ من مكة وتأتي إلى مكة. مكة هي أم القرى. أول جراح مسالك متخصص في المسالك وطئت أقدامه هذه البلاد الطاهرة كان في مكة. الدكتور الزميتي، والد الدكتور محمد الزميتي، أول متخصص في المسالك كان في مكة. وأول جراح مسالك سعودي من مكة الدكتور عبد الرحمن بخش، والقائمة تطول. نحن اليوم نفخر بوجودكم، نفخر باحتضان هذا المؤتمر، وإن شاء الله سيتكرر مرارا وتكرارا بعد اليوم. وأشكر اللجنة العلمية وأشكر الحضور وأشكر كل من شارك في إنجاح هذا المؤتمر. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. في واحد هو الجندي المجهول، وهو يعني لا تكاد تنظر في زاوية إلا وتراه، لا يمكن أن ينسى حتى لو ما ذكر اسمه. الدكتور هشام سعادة، تحية له.
كلمة بمعالي مدير جامعة أم القرى الدكتور بكر بن عتوبة الساس.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سبحانك اللهم خير معلم، علمت بالقلم القرون الأولى، أخرجت هذا العقل من ظلماته وهديته النور المبين سبيله. أرسلت بالتوراة موسى هادية، وابن البتول فعلم الإنجيل.
وفجرت ينبوع البيان محمدا، فسق الحديث وناول التنزيل. والصلاة والسلام على المكي نشأة ومولده، الذي صدع بفواتح دعوته من مكة المكرمة، وأعلن بالوحي كمالها في المدينة المنورة. اللهم صل وسلم على سيد الأولين والآخرين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أصحاب الفضيلة، أصحاب السعادة، الحضور الكرام، أحييكم بتحية الإسلام. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. روى ابن أبي أصيبعة في كتابه الحافل عيون الأنباء في طبقات الأطباء، روى قصة عجيبة عن صالح بن بهدلة أحد أطباء المسلمين العظماء. خلاصتها أنه قد ورد إلى أمير المؤمنين الرشيد نعي ابن عمه إبراهيم بن صالح، فلما غسل وكفن وجلس الرشيد للعزاء قبل دفنه صاح فيه صالح بن بهدلة، وكان قد فحص الرجل قبل إعلان وفاته بمدة يسيرة: يا أمير المؤمنين، لا تدفن ابن عمك حيا، أدخلني إليه وسترى. فلما دخل صالح على إبراهيم وهو في كفنه وخزه بإبرة بين ظفر إبهام يده اليسرى ولحمه، فجذب إبراهيم يده، فقال الطبيب صالح: أرأيت يا أمير المؤمنين؟ ثم إنه ظل ينفخ في فمه وأنفه نحو ثلث ساعة، تارة بفمه وتارة بمنفاخ، فلم يلبث إبراهيم أن اضطرب جسده ثم عطس ثم جلس. وهكذا كان هذا الطبيب المسلم أول من ابتكر الإنعاش الرئوي وأنقذ بذلك الرجل من أن يدفن حيا. ليست هذه القصة النادرة أيها الإخوة سوى شاهد واحد من 100 الشواهد على القفزات العظمى التي حققها المسلمين في المجال الطبي إبان ازدهار الحضارة الإسلامية. تلك القفزات التي كانت تتكئ على رؤية إسلامية تعرف قيمة الطب وتحث عليه. وحسبنا قول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: إن الله أنزل الدواء والداء وجعل لكل داء دواء. وحسبنا كذلك قول فقيه الأمة العظيم الإمام الشافعي: لا أعلم علما بعد الحلال والحرام أنبل من الطب. فانظروا أيها النبلاء كيف هي مكانتكم في عيون فقهاء الأمة وأئمتها. أيها الحفل الكريم، لم يكن الطب في الحضارة الإسلامية كلأ مباحا، بل كان علما مصون الجانب مهيب الحمى. وقد كان للأطباء في زمن الخليفة العباسي المقتدر امتحانا كامتحان الهيئة السعودية للتخصصات الصحية، فلا يتصدر للتطبيب إلا من يجوزه وينجح فيه ويحصل على ترخيص. وقد انتدب الخليفة المقتدر الطبيب البارع ثابت بن قرة لإجراء هذه الاختبارات، وذلك لجميع الممارسين، وذلك بعد أن ثبت لديه موت مريض بسبب خطأ طبي. وقد أفضت هذه العناية بالطب نظريا وعمليا إلى مبتكرات إسلامية جزئية يضيق الوقت عن حصرها. أذكر منها ما يمس موضوع مؤتمرنا هذا أو يقاربه. فالجراحة بأنواعها سبق إليها المسلمون، وقد ألح الزهراوي في القرن الخامس الهجري على درس التشريح، على حين أن أول عملية تشريح أجريت في أوروبا كانت في أواخر القرن التاسع الهجري. وابتكر الزهراوي أكثر من 200 آلة جراحة، ووضع أسس علم المناظير، وقام بالفعل بتفتيت حصوة المثانة بما يشبه المنظار، وتعرض لحصاة الكلى وشرح كيفية استخراجها، وتوصل إلى طريقة مبتكرة لعلاج الناصور. وابتكر الرازي الخيوط الجراحية المصنوعة من أمعاء الحيوانات. ومارس النساء الطب، وقد كانت في بناطق أبي يوسف المنصور طبيبتان من عائلة بن زهر. أيها الأحبة، إن انعقاد المؤتمر 29 لجمعية جراحة الكلى والمسالك البولية في مكة المكرمة له مدلول عظيم. فمكة هي عاصمة الأمة المسلمة وقبلتها ومهوى أفئدتها، فحري بها أن تكون ملتقى لحفدة أولئك الأطباء العظام الذين ملأوا الدنيا وشغلوا الناس وتركوا بصمتهم في تاريخ البشرية جمعاء. تلتقون اليوم حيث مر أسلافكم الأطباء العظماء حاجين أو معتمرين أو مجاورين، أو على الأقل حين وجهوا قلوبهم ووجوههم مصلين وراكعين وساجدين. فشدوا مطايانا إلى الربع ثانيا، فإن الهوى عن ربعهم ما ثنيناه، ففي ربعهم لله بيت مبارك إليه قلوب الناس تهوي ونهواه، يطوف به الجاني فيغفر ذنبه ويسقط عنه إثمه وخطاياه. دعانا إليه الله عند بنائه فقلنا له لبيك داع أجبناه. وطفنا به 7، رملنا 3 و4 مشيا كما قد أمرناه. كذلك طاف الهاشمي محمد طواف قدوم مثل ما طفناه. أيها الأحبة، بجوار هذا البيت المبارك أول بيت وضع للناس للذي ببكة مباركا وهدى للعالمين، ينعقد هذا الملتقى المبارك برعاية جامعة مباركة، حيث شرف المكان وشرف الرسالة. نعم، نحن في معاد، نحن في مكة. إن الذي فرض عليك القرآن لرادك إلى معاد. قل رب أعلم من جاء بالهدى ومن هو في ضلال مبين. في ظل دولة مباركة بلاد الحرمين المملكة العربية السعودية، الذي جعلت من خدمة الحرمين شعارا ودثارا، فلله من بركات بعضها فوق بعض، والحمد لله أولا وآخرا. أيها الحفل الكريم، ما كان لنا أن نحتفل اليوم ولا أن نلتقي بعد فضل الله لولا الدعم اللامتناهي من حكومتنا الرشيدة، وعلى رأسها خادم الحرمين الشريفين الملك سلمان بن عبد العزيز حفظه الله ورعاه. فما بذلته وتبذله هذه الحكومة للجامعات عزيز المثال قليل النظير، ولذلك لم يكن عجبا أن نظهر بكل هذه النتائج المتميزة. فشكرا لسيدي خادم الحرمين الشريفين ولحكومته الرشيدة، شكرا للمستشار خادم الحرمين الشريفين الأمير خالد الفيصل أمير منطقة مكة المكرمة على دعمه الدائم لجامعة أم القرى ومناشطها. شكرا لكم إخواني في كلية الطب على هذا الجهد والعطاء، كما أشكر العاملين في مدينة الملك عبد الله بن عبد العزيز الطبية والزملاء في الجمعية السعودية لجراحة المسالك البولية والكلى على تعاونهم مع كلية الطب في تدشين هذا الملتقى. شكرا لكم أيها الحضور. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. والآن مع فقرة التكريم تكريم سعادة المدير العام التنفيذي لمدينة الملك عبد الله الطبية بمكة الدكتور عبد الله غباشي، يستلمها نيابة عنه الدكتور جاسر الشهري. شركة الخليج يستلمها الأستاذ محمد يموت. شركة جي اس كي يستلمها الدكتور وأمير الدين الدكتور فهد السفري. مين هذا؟ مزارع فقيه للدواجن يستلمها الأستاذ طاهر الجفري. نشكر هذه الشركات الثلاث لدعمها بالهوية الماسية. والآن تكريم معالي مدير جامعة أم القرى الدكتور بكر بن معتود عساس. نشكر لكم حضوركم وحسن استماعكم، والآن تفضلوا مشكورين بزيارة المعرض في القاعة المجاورة.
Director of Hemodynamic Unit at Bristol Urological Institute in Bristol, United Kingdom. Dr. Hashim is going to give us a state-of-the-art talk. Please, Dr. Hashim.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for the Saudi Urological Association and the Saudi Avoiding Dysfunction Group for this very kind invitation. And specifically thank you to Dr. Badr al-Sa'id and Dr. Riyad al-Musa for giving me this opportunity to speak here. It's a great pleasure to be here. I've given lectures from the Far East, in the Philippines to the Far West in the US, but actually I echo what has been said earlier. This is probably the most exciting place to give a lecture and the holiest place to give a lecture, and it's my greatest pleasure to be here and give a state-of-the-art lecture on nocturia, looking at definitions and management and updates. So as you heard, I come from Bristol, which is in the southwest of England, and it's a tertiary referral center for female and functional urology. And what we will be talking about is nocturia, which is a very hot debated topic. But before we talk about it, we need to know actually what it is, what the definition of it is, because then we can all be talking the same language. And over the last 12 years, there has been lots of definitions, lots of papers published on nocturia, and I will try to summarize these and then tell you what is happening in the world of nocturia. The two main documents that have been published were in 2002, as you can see, it's about 15 years ago. One is looking at the terminology of lower urinary tract function, and the other looking at the standardization of terminology in nocturia, both from the International Continence Society. So what is nocturia? It could be a complaint. Is it bothering you? It could be a condition. It could be a clinical entity in its own right, that it happens without anything else, or it could be a sign of something else. And this is derived usually from the frequency volume chart. So it could be any of these, and it gets very confusing for people. So depending on how you utilize that word, it could be defined as a symptom, as a complaint, or as a sign. How the ICS has defined it in 2002 is that it's the complaint that the individual has to wake up at night one or more times to void. So it doesn't matter how many times you wake up, as long as it's one or more times. Enuresis is voiding at night while asleep, and nocturnal enuresis is the complaint of loss of urine during sleep. And then there are definitions of frequency, 24-hour urine production, and polyuria, which I'm not going to talk about much. And then there are other definitions of nocturnal urine volume, nocturnal polyuria, and maximum voided volume. And then you've got the bladder diary and how to analyze the bladder diary and the types of bladder diary. So lots of definitions in the standardization documents. And this is the bladder diary that is recommended for use. It's the only validated bladder diary in the world, done with patients, and at the current moment is being translated into Arabic with Dr. Riyad Musa, and hopefully that will be available sometime this year. And then other definitions have been also highlighted by the International Continence Society. But the one I want to stress is the word night. Night is going to bed with the intention of sleeping and waking with the intention of rising. This is different to how we as people translate night. Night to us is from sunset to sunrise. But the ICS say night is from the time you decide to go to bed to the time of waking up. The first morning void is the first void you have in the morning. Nocturnal polyuria is if you're passing more than a third of your volume at night. And again, there has been a lot of controversy about how to define nocturnal polyuria. So I'll try to actually summarize what the new recommendations will be. But essentially, for those over the age of 65, it's 33%, and under the age of 65, or some people under the age of 35 or 25, it's 14%. Again, all these definitions have not been based on any evidence. Why did they choose 33%? It was decided that a 70-kilogram man would sleep 8 hours in a day, and 8 is a third of 24. Therefore, they assumed that a person would void 33% of their volume in those 8 hours. Now, obviously, we know that this is not the case. So what are the problems that we are having? Should we be saying that getting up once at night is nocturia? Does it have to be a complaint? If you have a child who's crying and you go and pass the urine because you went up to see your child, is that nocturia? Or if you go up for prayers in the morning and then you go back to sleep, is that nocturia? Is it bothersome? We must be able to distinguish between true voids and convenience voids. And does it have to be preceded and followed by sleep, which is what the definition says? And should we be defining sleep time? So all these are problems with the definition as it stands from 2002. And you can see here this example. The definition currently of nocturia, of going to sleep, and it has to be preceded and followed by sleep. If you look at the green dots, the person wakes up and passes urine 5 times based on the green dots, from going to bed to rising in the morning. The middle green dots, or I can't get oh, there's the cursor, there we go. This middle green dot is not followed by sleep, and therefore, by definition, it should not be included in the word nocturia. So based on this definition of 2002, nocturia is actually only twice, but this person has gone up to pass urine at least 3 times and probably 5 times from the time of going to bed to the time of going to getting up. So there is a confusion. Also, as I said, nocturnal polyuria, what is that? Is it a percentage? Is it an absolute value? What should we be using? And you can see here 2 ways of categorizing nocturnal polyuria. If you categorize it by 33% of 24-hour urine volume, about 70 or 80% of people will have nocturnal polyuria. However, if you classify it by a suggested definition of mils per hour, depending on how much you sleep, then it goes down to about 10 to 20%. So there's a very big difference depending on how you define it. And actually, in one publication, they found that there is 19 ways to characterize nocturnal polyuria. So what is happening currently is that I'm chairing a working group for the International Continence Society, and we are trying to redefine the definitions from 15 years ago. We are now probably on the 8th reiteration of the document, because every time we try to come up with a definition, something else happens. So this is how the document currently stands. It will probably be accepted, and it will go for public consultation in the next few weeks. What we have done is we have divided definitions into symptoms and signs. Symptoms is what the person says they have. Signs is what you see on objective measures. So nocturia, and we have simplified it so easily to say that it's basically waking at night to pass urine. Doesn't matter how much time you get up. It's not a complaint, so it's not pathological. It can be anything. It's just a definition to say that if you get up at night to pass urine, you have nocturia. And we have moved away from actually trying to define it as a pathological entity, which is what the 2002 definition has done. In terms of signs, it is the number of times an individual passes urine during their main sleep period. Again, we have said main sleep period because as doctors, you may be doing night shifts and you sleep in the daytime, and that may be your normal day sleep period. And this is usually from the bladder diary. It's the number of times you pass urine. That's it. It's just a definition. It doesn't have any pathological entity to it. Enuresis, we've removed the word nocturnal because nocturnal and enuresis, you're almost saying the same thing. When you say enuresis, it means at night. So, and this would be in comparison and similar to what the International Children's Continence Society used, similar to what the neurogenic committee of the ICS used. And it's basically intermittent incontinence that occurs during sleep periods. The sign itself would be wetting the bed at night. This is what the patient would come to you and say, I wet the bed when I'm asleep at night. And then for nocturnal polyuria, what we said is that nocturnal polyuria is passing large volumes of urine at night. We have kept away from trying to specify the volume. Because as I showed you, there were 19 ways of classifying nocturnal polyuria depending on the definition, and therefore we just said as a symptom, the patient would come to you and say, I pass a lot of urine at night. As a sign, it will be excessive production of urine based on the bladder diary. But when you define it that way, you need to specify how you are classifying it. Is it by the nocturnal polyuria index? Is it by the mils per hour produced, and so on? So there are different ways of classifying it. And we have tried to keep it as simple as possible. And therefore translating it to other languages would also be easier. Nocturnal urine volume, again, that's the volume of urine passed during the main sleep period. So from the time you go to bed and fall asleep to the time you wake up in the morning, including the first morning void, because that's part of the nighttime volume. And 24-hour urine volume is the volume passed in 24 hours. So I hope that by defining nocturia better, we will be able to actually look at the pathophysiology of nocturia and look at its causes. As things stand, there are three main causes of nocturia. It's a reduced bladder capacity, increased fluid intake, and diuresis. And you cannot diagnose nocturia or nocturnal polyuria without a frequency volume chart. There has been several studies published about what can be treated. Antimuscarinics don't work. They reduce nocturia by 0.2. PPE or PPH medication, tamsulosin, alpha blockers, and so on, don't reduce it by more than 0.5. And prostate surgery, TURP, does not help either. And urodynamics, again, may give you different answers. It's not needed for nocturia in its own right. And when you do urodynamics, you can get bladder outlet obstruction, you can get diffuser overactivity, or a combination of these. So how do we treat it? We treat the cause of it. The bladder capacity, the fluid intake, and the diuresis. So you may have to have multiple people looking at it. But what I will do is concentrate on nocturnal polyuria because this is the latest thing that's been published now. And what we have is desmopressin, which has been used before. But what is new about it is that we now have a low-dose desmopressin. It has a good bioavailability. There is no restriction on age and does not cause hyponatremia as the other ones used to. We still have to check for it, but it's not as strict as it used to be. And basically, the dosage that is accepted is 25 micrograms in women and 50 micrograms in men, which is much lower than what it used to be in the past. And this was based on multi-center trials, both in the USA and Canada, in men and women, and over a 3-month period, which is standard for clinical trials. I'm not going to discuss these clinical trials in great detail, but you can see that there was an improvement in the number of nocturnal voids, which is very significant in both men and women. And over a 3-month period, this was quite good. And also there was an increase in responders with nocturnal polyuria. And the name of the drug is called Nocderna, and it decreases urine volume as well. So it does exactly what the previous desmopressin does, but this has only been licensed for the last 2 months in the United Kingdom, and similarly in other parts of Europe and the US. And it'll probably be coming here in the next few months, I hope. Side effects are similar, but again, the age restriction is now removed, but there is a caution to say that you have to check serum sodium levels at day 3 and day 7 and baseline. So in summary, Nocderna is the newest thing that's available for treatment of nocturia. It improves quality of life, it reduces nocturia, and improves the duration of uninterrupted sleep. And the dosage is much lower than previous ones. So, and especially the hyponatremia risk, which is the main thing that we are always worried about. So I hope that I've given you a short flavor of what is happening in the world of nocturia in terms of definitions and where we are going, and in terms of treatment and what is available and how we're going to take things forward in the next few years. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for this great lecture. For the sake of time, we'll have to move on. So it gives me a great pleasure, myself and Dr. Naqshbandi, to present to you Dr. Ali Gozen, who is a member of the laparoscopic training section of the European Association of Urology, currently working as a surgeon at SLK Clinicum Heilbronn in Germany. He will give us a talk on the Turkish Association of Urology lecture, Avoiding Complications in Laparoscopy, Laparoscopic Renal Surgery.
Dear Chairman, dear colleagues, firstly I want to thank you for this kind invitation. I'm happy to be there under my friends here. Special thanks are going firstly to Dr. Enlar, to Dr. Reid, and to Dr. Turki, and to all my friends here in this hall. Today I want to give you a horror lesson. Better to be prepared if something can happen. How we can avoid complications of laparoscopic renal surgery. Greetings from Heilbronn. I'm working currently and doing the last 15 years. And as you know, most of the laparoscopic procedures are today gold standards. It means this is our routine way to treat patients. All the, as you see here, all the well-known advantages of laparoscopic surgery we have to offer to our patients. We are no more opening for an adrenectomy or nephrectomy like this, and with laparoscopy almost as has been studied here by my Saudi colleagues, is on, as you can see on the right now, with mini laparoscopy. Laparoscopy now used widespread. Everybody is performing laparoscopy, and a surgeon without complications are either a stranger or he hasn't done enough surgeries. It means for you, you will face complications. If you are going to laparoscopic surgery, even during your first 20 cases, your complication rate will be 20%, and after the first 20 cases, you can drop it to 4%. If you are going to more than 100 cases, your complication rate will increase again, because you will start with more complicated cases with increasing experience. It means your complications will stay with you. Better to avoid, sure, if you are a good surgeon, you have to know how to manage. If you are a more clever surgeon, you have to better know how to avoid them. If you feel burning, what you will do? We have always, in case of fire, a plan. It's here, then you have to know where you have to go. If it's a complication, you have to also know where you go. How to prevent first, how you recognize early, and then how to manage, if possible, during the same case. Start with the optimal patient selection. When you are starting with surgery, start with easy cases. On the other hand, nothing is easy. It's no easy case. We have to be more careful to make everything easier. And then prepare pre-operatively everything really full. It means it is a tumor, size, localization, anatomy, renal vessels, what's around. Everybody is looking to the operation theater, to the computer tomography. I'm asking when we are starting with the case, I'm asking always, what you have seen on the computer tomography? How many vessels he has? Everybody is looking to the computer tomography, but less people are really concentrating on the possible problems, what can happen. We are just looking to the computer tomography, okay, tumor is somewhere there, and we are going to open and see what's going on. Better to know how many vessels, localization, just concentrate on the case more. The injuries, what can happen with the kidney, possession, access injuries, bowel injuries, vessel injuries, pleural injuries, And not to forget, when we are going to the kidney on the left side, pancreatic injuries. This can end really very, very bad. Patient position. When we are starting with surgery, our friends or residents are starting always with the patient position. If you know how to put the patient on the table in the best way, you will be able to avoid a lot of complications because of the position. These are neural injuries, muscle injuries, all these injuries. You will operate the patient very nicely. You will cure the patient. Everything is done. But next day, patient will tell you, "Oh, doctor, I have a shoulder pain," and everything you have done is nothing. It means better to take care at the beginning for the position. Vessel injuries. The bowel injuries are the classical injuries during the entrance. Mostly they are the epigastric vessels. And when you are going to with varus needle or bluntly with the trocars, you can injure directly big vessels or bowel. What we can do then? Better you have to use, when you are starting mini laboratory, as a technique, it's a very safe technique. You will see, then put your trocar. You have to put your trocars under digital control or under view to make sure that you are not injuring anything. You have to study abdominal wall before. You are not just going and putting the trocars, but it's always keep in mind, okay, this is the psoas or this is the rectus now on the right side or left side. Keep in mind the abdominal wall anatomy can be also very different, like we have seen in the books. And if it's a previous operated case, better choose a retroperitoneal way to not touch any intra-abdominal organ. If you do retroperitoneally, you will not see the bowel. You will not see any epigastrics. This is actually, in this complicated way, complicated cases, the way to choose. The program is right. Okay. Let's see. What's working? No more working. This is nice surprises always to face. I think almost done. This was the access. Here, perhaps. Next one. Okay, I don't want to afraid you. I'm telling always in the operation theater, when you are holding something, you have to hold it like you are holding a woman's hand. If you are using your power too much, you are not using your brain. As you can see, during the preparation, during the nephrectomy, we can injure the vena cava because you are pushing too much. Thank you very much. You are pushing too much and applying too much force. What happens now? If you vena cava is ruptured like this, actually in this context we have to open the patient. And don't wait too long. Another example. This is again a nephrectomy. The main artery is controlled very nicely. Now the main vein. But the surgeon is not taking care that behind the vein is something. Two clips very safely. Then cutting. The vein is looking a little bit not empty. The last cut, this can happen. What is this? This is another vessel behind the vein. And as you can see here, surgeon is not giving up. They're just looking one more time. What's going on? This very risky movement actually. You see here the artery. If you are experienced and know what you have to do, you can try to stop it. At least for a moment. Now you have to open and then solve the problem. It's always important to know the anatomy and what we have to do. First, do not panic. If you will cry there, nobody will help you. Better be prepared before. If you are working in a battlefield, it means very stuck area, vessel variations, more than one artery, more than one vein. Keep somebody in front of you who can help you, who can understand whatever you are talking. Use an expert assistant. Assistant is always very important. If you have an assistant who knows what's the operation, what's the solution, what he can do, he will show you better, he will let you prepare to operate better. Use optimal instruments and materials. If some instruments are missing and you are still operating, the problem will happen. If it's not bleeding, you don't know anything, you cannot look inside, just increase the pressure and call somebody. And at the certain moment, don't hesitate to open. What to avoid, how to avoid these vessel injuries. Work gently and along landmarks. We have to see always, we have to know on which street you are. With the Empire State Building on the right side, on Oyster Caves here behind us. We have to know where you are. We need some landmarks. When you are going to the vessels, expose vessels adequately. Don't use a lot of force and see where is the artery, where is the vein. Don't use a lot of force when you retract. If you are using your force, you are not using your brain. Identify big vessels at the beginning and hold highly, not just the big vessels. Go also a little bit around. See it's any accessory vessels there. And when you are operating, please don't rush. You cannot operate against the time. This will not make you a big surgeon. Better be careful. Bowel injury. You go with your nice trocar inside, not with acid technique, but with varus. Put your trocar directly in the bowel. What else now? We talked before that we have to take care in these cases how the bowel injuries can happen, and you have to use maybe the open technique, acid technique. If it's a small injury, you can manage it with a stitch. If you know how to put the stitch, if you don't know anything, open the patient, put your stitches. Don't let your ego control you. You have to control better your nerves. Open technique, we talked about it. Take care. In previous operating abdomens, choose better the retroperitoneal vein. When you're using energy sources, they are nowadays everywhere. Take care when you're applying energy. If you are applying using the hand-fire instruments, you can start with hand and take care double time when you are going to coagulate or when you are going to cut with this energy. When you are using foot-fire instruments, put first your foot on the pedal and then go to coagulate. When you are performing 2 minutes bowel preparation, be careful. And then if you can do then freehand suturing, sure, try to close. One more case. One more access injury for you. This is a retroperitoneal case. Surgeon is operating, going behind the kidney. As you see, this is the perirenal vent. Ops on the left side. Surgeon is coming with the trocar through pleura. Now you have a hole on the pleura. What you will do now? Don't go too much lateral, you will find your pleura. If you put the trocars too cranially, it's the possibility is high. When you're using energy sources on the left side, when you're operating on the kidney, on the abdominal wall side, take care. You have to close it at the end. If you can close with free hand, everything is solved. You can put clips or a stitch, or you have to put a thorax drain. If you don't know anything, it's happened, call a thorax surgeon. It's not a shame. Pancreatic injuries, take care. It's not really almost 10% on the left side when you're going to operate on the adrenal or upper wall of the kidney. It's a big problem. Be gentle. You cannot grasp adrenal. Don't forget. That is spatial anatomy. from where the vessels are coming. When you're going to operate tomorrow a kidney, start with mental training. This is the kidney I will go operate. When I'm going to sleep, I'm always looking one video about the next day case. Prostatectomy, I'm looking at prostatectomy video. 5 minutes or 10 minutes. No, I'm mentally trained for the first case. Generally, how we can avoid complications. First, vascular anatomy, radiology images which are pre-prepared. Put your trachas carefully. When you are manipulating your instruments, always manipulate instruments in your operating field. Always keep the operating field in the screen. Take care for the patient's safety first. When you properly recognize the complication, you can manage it. With experience with vascular visceral bowel injuries, you can do it laparoscopically also with the time. But it's important to realize that one shall not repair any injury laparoscopically. Then sometimes you can manage the problem laparoscopically, but this will also increase the morbidity. At the end, you have to take care for patient safety, and we have a low threshold for conversion. Now just look this video. Never overestimate yourself. You are not a Superman. How do you know that you are not a Superman? Just take care for the video. You think that you can do it. It's not possible. We are here not Superman, we are just human beings. We have to know also our limits. And in laparoscopy, we have a big problem. Everybody can look on the screen. If you are doing too much artistic movements, it's actually can end very drastically in laparoscopy. No place for artistic movements or techniques in laparoscopically. Be always better on the safe side. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Now it gives me a great honor, me and Dr. Saad, to introduce a teacher, a pioneer in the field of urology in Saudi Arabia, Dr. Salah Al-Faqih, who's going to give us a talk about chronic prostatitis, over or underdiagnosis in our community. Dr. Salah.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you very much for and congratulations for the organizers of this meeting, about the place, about the excellent organization of the meeting, and we hope for everybody, Ramadan Qul inshallah, and all the best for everybody. Now I don't know why they chose me to give this topic about the prostatitis. They thought that I was still young, but I pretend to be still young. Especially the chairman is a pediatric urologist. Now, when they told me this, you see, I thought, how am I going to answer this question? I have reviewed the world literature, I have changed the local literature, utilized mine and other colleagues' personal observations. Remember the entry question that one time Mr. Gordon Williams from St. Thomas's Hospital visited us, and I showed him a research that we are doing, that we are following the patient for 6 months. So he told me, do you think that in 6 months you can cure a patient with chronic prostatitis? I remember that more than 20 years ago. Then I discovered that the literature speaks a common uncertainty language about this prefixing condition. Then I realized that it is not easy to provide a convincing answer, but I think as we are all in the same shape, probably the answer will not be a difficult one. In the literature, it has attracted a lot of work in the literature before, but recently there is a lack of interest into this topic. And this may be related to the fact that it is not a very rewarding subject for the patients and also for the doctors alike to treat, and also prostatitis was overshadowed in the past 25 years with the growing interest in the BPH and cancer prostate. And Nikhil, who is one of the world leaders in writing about the research about prostatitis, he said in his article, Prostatitis, Myth and Realities, described prostatitis as the black sheep or cousin of the family of diseases affecting the prostate. And I don't think he is very far from reality in this. Now, there is no universally accepted definition. It is a clinical syndrome characterized by non-specific symptoms, pain, perineum, in the perineum, in the pelvis or pubic area, or in the external genitalia with a variable degree of voiding and or sexual disturbance. Now, you can see from the descriptive tale that chronic pelvic pain syndrome, and this هذا يمشي مع المثل وفسر الماء بعد الجهد بالماء. The patient is complaining from this and telling him that you are having this. Now, it is a very common condition among the males that nearly 10% of the general male population being affected. In fact, 90% of the cases are not associated with bacterial brussels, but at the meantime they are called prostatitis, implying that it is bacterial. Now, historically, because of the prevalence of this problem, the interest in this has been long-standing, from the 19th century, 20th century, and now. The famous classifications of Staley and the National Institute of Health in 1978 and 1999 are not much different except in the details. And the famous Staley 4-glass test, which has been introduced in the 1968, was the gold standard of diagnosing chronic prostatitis and localizing the infection. Now, when I searched the literature, I got confusion, I got data analysis, and suddenly a lot of papers has came, they are sort of titled about this subject. Quandary means that something which is perplexing, muhayyar, fact or fiction, dilemma, myths and realities. So the problem is not unique to a particular society, but it is an international society and among many urologists who practice urology. Etiology, when you talk about bacterial prostatitis, which constitute about 10% of the patients who are diagnosed with prostatitis, mainly it is gram-negative bacteria. Gram-positive Streptococcus faecalis can come into it. Chlamydia and Uroplasma eroticum and all these are not sort of, their place is not well defined into the cause as a cause of prostatitis. Unfortunately, this is one of the areas that we come across very frequently in our practice. Unfortunately, in our practice, we frequently see patients treated as chronic bacterial prostatitis with reports of heavy growth of Staphylococcus aureus. What does this mean? Simply it means contamination. Now, the etiology of the chronic bacterial syndrome is not known. Many theories has been sort of suggested for this, but none of these has been validated, and the patient will end up by exclusion of other possible problems that can cause his symptoms, and then he'll be left with a long-term different types of treatment that will leave him and his doctors in frustration, and the doctors usually will refer him to somebody else that may try to help him. Principles of evaluation, and I think one of the main principles of evaluation is a careful history taking, including the presenting symptoms and the past neurological and sexual history. And I don't think we should give a very little time for those people. I think they need all the time that we can give them. History of urinary infection should raise the suspicion of chronic bacterial prostatitis, and chronic pelvic pain in a man without documented infection supports the diagnosis of chronic pelvic pain rather than the bacterial prostatitis. Definitive diagnosis of chronic bacterial prostatitis relies on isolation of an etiologically recognized organism. The 4-glass and 2-glass tests, semen cultures, are frequently used. Ultrasound, MRI, urodynamics, all these are done as required. Now, the NIH chronic prostatitis it is a test. It is a scoring system to assess the severity of the symptoms rather than for the diagnosis. Microbiological localization is done by the 4 or the 2-class test, and it is designed to document the presence of, to localize the bacteria and to culture the bacteria and to see where it has come from, the bladder, from the prostate, or from the urethra. Now, the famous Ms. 4-class test, it is no more used now because if anybody has used it, it is a very cumbersome, time-consuming, very uncomfortable for the patients. Now, this has been largely replaced by the 2-class test, which is a urine specimen, prostate massage to take EBS to pressurize the fluid out of the prostate and then take another urine sample. It has shown a very strong concordance with the 4-class test. Now, the classifications: acute bacterial prostatitis, chronic bacterial prostatitis, non-bacterial prostatitis, and prostatidynia. Now, the first two takes only 10%, while the 90% are left with the problematic non-bacterial and the prostatodynia. And the National Institute of Health Classification, which is the standard now, differs only in the details of this. Otherwise, the category 90% is still the same. Now, the presence of white blood cells or pus cells in the expressed prostatic secretion, their utility and importance of the treatment and outcome of patients with a chronic prostatitis, chronic pelvic pain syndrome remain unclear, because they are present in many conditions other than the chronic prostatitis. So their presence does not necessarily indicate that the patient has chronic bacterial prostatitis. Semen cultures, the value of semen culture diagnosis evaluation remains unclear. The reported sensitivity of semen culture diagnosis of chronic bacterial prostatitis varies between 10 and 100%. And this heterogeneity, the heterogeneity of patient tested to explain this why, because you cannot have a range between 10 and 100% in a very close range of similar patients. Must be a very heterogeneous group of patients. Semen culture are positive in about 50% of semen samples of men with chronic bacterial prostatitis, but negative semen culture does not exclude the diagnosis. Principles of treatment, scientific reports are not in favor of common etiology applying to all forms and multifactorial genesis. The main thing is that principle of treatment is that indiscriminate use of prolonged courses of antibiotics should be discouraged. Antimicrobial therapy should be guided by bacterial cultures and sensitivities. Now, when it comes to documented chronic bacterial acute prostatitis or chronic bacterial prostatitis, the treatment is not very difficult, because quinolones and the Septra and all these are very effective into these. But for the rest of the 90% of the cases, the treatment is problematic, and here where the crunch of the people who can be left with long courses of unindicated antibiotics. Now, what do we see in our practice? We see young patients, internet educated, and this is very dangerous actually, non-specific urinary symptoms, pelvic and perineal pain or discomfort, no significant past urological history, labeled as chronic prostatitis without proper evidence, worried about their fertility, sexual life, and cancer, treated with prolonged courses of antibiotics. Once in their mind that they have a chronic prostatitis, it takes a lot of effort and time to reassure them that actually they don't have that. The prevalence and etiology of chronic prostatitis in Saudi Arabia and the Gulf countries is not established. In fact, I searched the literature, I did not find something significant about this subject. Very little, if any, is written about this subject in the literature. In order to evaluate the etiology, we did a small study in 1989, which was a prospective study for about a 1 or 2 year period. And a group of carefully selected patients were just to know the etiology and bacteriology of of these. Now, what we found, we have 129 patients recruited for that. Their mean age was 31 years. Mean duration of symptoms was 39 months of long symptoms. 60% of patients gave past history of urethritis. That's because we were very selective for that particular study. Chronic bacterial prostatitis was diagnosed in 10%. Even with this highly selective group, we found only 10% with the documented bacterial prostatitis. Chronic non-bacterial prostatitis was diagnosed in 34% of patients. Prostatidynia was diagnosed in 56% of patients. E. coli was the main organism isolated, followed by Streptococcus fecalis. And this goes with what is there in the world literature. So what is the verdict? What is the answer? And I think, in my opinion, from what we see, yes, prostatitis is an overdiagnosed condition in our community. Nearly all patients with symptoms of prostatitis are labeled in the clinic as prostatitis, implying it is bacterial and treated with antibiotics. It is easy to tell the patient that you have prostatitis and give him antibiotics than spending time reassuring and explaining. Many patients are not bothered by the symptoms per se, but they are worried that their symptoms may indicate more sensitive conditions. And this is the fact, actually. They are worried about the BPH, they are worried about the cancer, they are worried about the fertility, they are worried about the sexuality. Hence, it is important to take time in understanding the patient's worries. Communicating and discussing the results and their significance in simple terms is very important to reassure the patients and elevate their worries. Actually, communicating with these patients, as it is now, is very important in medicine in general, but in those patients it is extremely important. Otherwise, patients will become prostatitis crippled and riddled with prolonged courses of antibiotics, and they and their urologist alike become frustrated. And we have seen that as well. So, what is the suggested clinical approach? Take your time with the patient, detailed history taking, including presenting symptoms, physiological and sexual history, and risk factors of previous urological interventions, physical examination with careful and proper rectal examination. The 2-class test is practical and convenient in a clinic setting, and I don't think the 4-class test should be on a routine use, except if it is for research purposes. Semen culture, if possible, because not many people will give you that. Proper communication with the patient, explain to him in simple terms, and elevate his worries. And I think this is very, communicating with those patients is extremely important, because many of them are misinformed about the condition, about the diagnosis, about the consequences.
Thank you very much. I think because of the constraint of time, we're concluding this session. I would like to thank our honorable speakers for being on time. And I think we're going now for a prayer and lunch.
GSK Symposium. It's one of the companies sponsoring the symposium, so we'd like to call them before we reminder again. The lunch will be in the 29th floor. 29th floor. The view is magnificent, but you have to come back by 2 o'clock, please. So everyone, please, 2 o'clock, be back here. The reminder again, the gala dinner meeting in the lobby, M2 at 7 o'clock. Buses will leave at 7 o'clock, 7:50, sorry. There is another bus at 9 o'clock for those joining the tour. There is a tour after Asr prayer, so those guys might miss 7 o'clock bus. There's an extra bus, one bus at 9 o'clock. Okay, yes, company, please. Yeah. Oh yeah, sorry. Please guys, the hotel insists that nobody get to lunch without the coupon. Nobody will get the lunch yesterday for dinner, they stopped us. So you have, every one of you should have 2 of those. One for today, from tomorrow. Please, they will stop you without this kind of coupon, please, okay? Where is JSK? JSK. People are leaving.
a newly diagnosed patient, what are the criteria we follow to identify the proper management for the patient? Probably, which is customarily used now, in general, that we judge what we are going to advise the patient for on symptoms, mostly on symptoms. Although we do take into consideration many other factors, but we do baseline assessment for the patient, we do many tests. Mainly we end up, in general, as we see that in the practice, we follow the symptoms. But if we look at the all baseline assessment, does this make difference? That is the question that we are posing today. And what is important for us also is there consideration for the risk of progression when we start managing the patient? Is it important to be considered? These factors has to be looked at because the prevalence of PBH in the age between 60 and 70, we will have almost 70% of the population will have evidence, cellular evidence of benign prostatic hyperplasia without symptoms in general. But you will have about 50% of them will have bladder outflow, obstruction or leaks, and those symptoms probably when you get the bladder, both IPSS score and bladder PBE, then you will find 34% of the whole group of patients of whole group of community at the age 60-70% will have that, will be presented with that. I will not stop with this slide because unfortunately I was told the presentation 45 minutes, so I had to give a detailed presentation, and now it is squeezed to probably get up to 20 minutes or less than 30 minutes. But when we look at the baseline prostate volume, is it related to the general condition of the patient, association with the increased incidence of PBH? We see that overall PBH progression from on-top study, overall PBH progression will be in less than 31 min. It will be 3.4%, and in the other group, also in the AAM score, in the moderate group, you will have 3 and 43%. The incidence of retention of urine is also higher in the volume. So in general, not only symptoms, but also complication increase with volume, and the needs for invasive therapy also during the progress of the disease. So the volume, prostatic volume, is also a factor in addition to the symptoms that we need to consider when we judge the management. And we know very well that is part of our practice. We do always, we consider the volume. But there are other issues that also we do assess, which is the PSA. We do PSA for the patients, specifically patients over 50. So does this make difference? What is also from NTOP study showed that PSA more than 1.6 are more prone to complications or adverse event in the progress of the disease. So it's not only the symptoms, it's not also just symptoms and volume, but also the PSA, which is one of the factors that we measure with the patient. Usually when we assess the patient, we do the baseline assessment initially. So we have in age is also noticed that it is a factor. It increases those adverse events like retention of urine, increase with the age. So when the patient diagnosed with older age, and they are even more prone to get, when the progress disease, they are more prone to get retention of urine. So when you diagnose the patient at the first stage from day one, and you should expect that when if he is diagnosed by 50, when he reaches the age of 80, he has incidence of retention of urine of 12%. Now, the severity of LUTS and urine flow also associated 3 times, like for example, the severity of LUTS associated with the incidence of adverse event. So if you consider the severity of symptoms from the beginning of the presentation, you will see when the patient has mild symptoms, and the patient who has moderate symptoms, the patient who has moderate symptoms has 3 times possibility of having adverse event in the progression of the disease. The same thing with the airflow. So when you assess the patient, the baseline assessment, the initial baseline assessment, it is clearly that all those points are associated with adverse event. It's not only the symptoms. And that should be probably considered within the management. As airflow, we see it is for X assessment. So it's actually involving goals of urinary tract infection in the guidelines. We see initially we were concentrating in the system. The revised 2010 also considered additional being focused on alteration of disease progression. So this is one of the goals of the management, that you alter the disease progression. And we saw from the few slides that we saw before, the disease progression associated with many factors, not only the symptoms. Therefore, this all has to be considered if we are taking also state that we would like to treat the patient, provide evidence-based practice. Now, evidence-based practice is not just relying on evidence-based guidelines. A combination of guidelines, clinical expertise, as well as patient values or patient expectations. So when you consider all those factors, then you got to plan your management taking in consideration the baseline that you found, as well as the end-up discussion with the patient when you sit and talk to the patient and see that what is the preference of the patient. Like for somebody when he is active in work, sexually active, and he is very busy man, is different from somebody elderly, 70 years old, who is not bothered to get up 3 times in the night, and that will not affect his life. So these are 2 different examples which actually just the patient expectations and patient general situation will dictate part of the management. So when you consider that, we saw what type of management we have in general. We have actually watchful waiting, alpha blockers, and PDE5 inhibitors, and also 5-alpha reductase inhibitors. We see that probably if you take just watchful waiting and alpha blockers, we concentrate only 1 factors from the factors we looked at, which is mostly symptoms of the patient. But that will not affect, will not change the progress of the disease. And that's what we can see from that, and probably the combination can give you more. So current treatment, as we say, concentrating on symptoms, and it's not only in our culture, it is many studies show in many countries, also the physicians concentrating on symptoms and management, and prescribing primarily only alpha blockers for symptoms. And we can see that from studies in different places. So what is it for? So is it because of the efficacy or safety or patient preference or just habit? So when we look at the efficacy, we can say in conclusion from the study, from the NCAP study, that the alpha blockers will not change the incidence of retention of urine. And the outcome after following the patient for 2 years showed that it is the incidence of acute retention of urine in the patient on alpha blocker is very close to the placebo. And we don't see it only in OMNIC, but also in other like InfoSC from their own studies. And also we see that the combination of 5-alpha reductase and alpha-adrenergic blocker improve voiding symptoms much more than just alpha-adrenergic blocker, even in the group where the prostate is small. So we can really see that from the study. So it is actually the efficacy is not the major factor in the issue. So is it the safety? Now, the alpha-adrenergic blockers alone is not very safe drug. It is the incidence probably with tamsulosin of retrograde ejaculation is higher than the others, but still, unfortunately, the gastrointestinal symptoms is more. So there are some side effects, but probably is not a major factor in that. So it's not the only safe drug. It's not just like placebo. But it doesn't indicate from the studies that physicians are following that because it's safe and they are not doing any other things because it's not safe. Is it patient preference? If we look at it, for example, this study showed that what is the patient preference for the medication? If you tell them that you have probably a chance to have medication that prevent the progress of disease in high percentage, or medication that will give you only symptoms relief, but probably the progress of disease will continue, they will say in majority number, yes, we would like to limit the progress of disease. But actually, we have some data indicating that's only 50% based on physicians. So it is the perception of the physicians that the patient would like symptoms relief rather than through management. So it could be probably habits, it could be habits. Therefore, we saw that in baseline assessment, we have many factors has to be considered, and if we consider those factors, probably we start earlier with a combination therapy, and a large majority of youths, and so patients are at risk of BPH progression, and also current traits suggest treatment is largely symptomatic, and there are no really evidence basis for that. And patient preference for treatment is not only focused on the symptoms. Now, if we look at what can we do, if we give earlier treatment doesn't make difference, it's actually make difference for the patient because we are targeting the baseline assessment, all of it, from the beginning. So our message here is to consider the whole baseline assessment when we see the patient first. If we see that the patient older than 50 is having higher PSA side and having larger, medium-sized prostate, probably the combination is the best choice for the patient from the beginning rather than waiting until he gets into further complication. We thought to present a short, concise message, and we hope that this message will be of benefit to you. Thank you very much. Now, if you have any questions, probably just 2 minutes before prayer. Okay, thank you very much. Someone is asking, lunch after prayer. If you go before prayer, nobody will let you in. Don't forget the coupon. When you come back again, please, 2 o'clock. Please be here on time, please. And please, all the speakers remove their USBs. Afternoon presenter, remove USBs please, okay?
For prostate cancer. So please, Dr. Hala, we are running short of time, so we need 7 minutes talk. Okay, you can start.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Our project entitled Evaluation of Prostate Stem Cell Antigen as a Novel Biomarker for Prostate Cancer. Our team includes Dr. Ammar Nasser, Dr. Hisham Saada, Dr. Hussein Nasser, Dr. Samir Fatami, and 5 of our medical students. Our project was funded by the Institute of Scientific Research of Qura University, Mecca, KSA. As you know, prostate cancer is one of the most common cancers and cause of cancer-related deaths worldwide. PSA revolutionized the diagnostic cancer screening and diagnosis landscape. However, serum level within the gray zone, which is 4 to 10 nanogram per milliliter, are very difficult to discriminate between prostate cancer, prostatic hyperplasia, or other condition as prostatitis. Also, PSA may increase the risk of overdiagnosis and or overtreatment. Further, there is a great need for searching for novel biomarkers for either diagnosis or prognosis or both. We published an article, a review articles, our team, concerning the conventional and the promising prostate cancer biomarkers within the Journal of Molecular Biomarker Diagnosis, and we highlight some of the novel biomarkers, which is prostate stem cell antigen or PSCA. To the best of our knowledge, for the first time in KSA, the prostate stem cell antigen will be evaluated. Prostate stem cell antigen is a prostate-specific gene with 30% homology to the stem cell cancer antigen, which is a surface protein related to the glycosyl phosphatidylinitrotol composition. It is also in close proximity to theme-like oncogene. Both are located on the same amplicon, which is chromosome 8q. Prostate stem cell antigen messenger RNA expression is a prostate-specific expressed in normal male epithelium, and it is highly upregulated and amplified in androgen-dependent and in independent prostate cancer xenografts. Evaluated level for PSCA expression correlate with increased tumor stage, grade progression, and androgen independence and bone metastasis. Also, it is found to be significant predictor of biochemical recurrence after radical prostatectomy in high-risk prostate cancer group. PSCA targeted immunotherapy could be a new therapeutic modality, and it is recently shown to additives affect the cell membrane, causing signaling molecules highly so close to the androgen receptor connection and androgen receptor complex binding to the hormone responsive elements, causing the increased expression or overproduction and synthesis of PSCA. Recently, a targeted monoclonal antibody binding to the PSCA could cause regression of tumor in animal models. Our aim and objectives are evaluation of the association of PSCA with clinical characteristic features and diagnostic and predictive roles of it as a novel biomarkers in comparison to other biomarkers as BHI and UPA. Our plan includes 3 study groups. First group is a prostate cancer group with patient diagnosed with prostate cancer confirmed with biopsy before any intervention. Group 2 prostatic hyperplasia, benign prostatic hyperplasia, and group 3 are the healthy control. Those groups are age and BMI matched with the cancer group. For all groups, we measure BSA, TPSA, FPSA, ProPSA, and UPA by ELISA for calculation of PHI. PHI is a newly approved biomarker for diagnosis of breast cancer, and it includes 3 fractions of PSA, which is the Pro2 PSA over 3 PSA multiplied by 10 square of PSA. Also, we measure the prostate stem cell antigen by real-time PCR, including RNA extraction from blood sample, then cGMA synthesis, then real-time PCR, and calculation of number of copies of the resultant gene in relation to the standard curve. Our results: PSA show highly significant difference between prostate cancer group, benign prostatic group, and control group. The significance between the prostate cancer group and control group was highly significant. P-value is below 0.001, while the difference between prostate cancer and benign prostatic hyperplasia are significant. The p-value are below 0.05. We do a correlation analysis between the different biomarkers with PSA, and we found they have a significant difference. Also, the PSA show a significant correlation with prostate health index and with clinical staging parameters N0 to N1, N0 to N1, and below or equal to TP and more than 2 TP. The correlation analysis with PSCA with Gleason score show highly significant difference with also a positive association. We do multivariate correlation analysis with the risk for distant metastasis as a dependent variable, and we found that both PSCA show highly significant value, which indicate that it is an independent predictor of occurrence of prostate cancer. To summarize, PSCA showed significant difference between the study group. It was positively correlated with Gleason score, and it is significantly positive correlation with PHI and UPA. Multiple regression analysis revealed that PSCA, PHI, and Gleason score greater than 8 are independent predictor of distant metastasis or aggressiveness of prostate cancer. To conclude, the PSCA is a promising biomarker for diagnosis and prediction of aggressiveness of prostate cancer.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hannah. I would like to invite Dr. Faisal Al-Jihmi in presenting his talk in treatment patterns in patients with metastatic prostate cancer at King Abdulaziz Medical City in Jeddah, retrospective study.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to present my research. My name is Professor Shah. I'm a urology resident at King Abdulaziz Medical City. Our research was a treatment pattern patient with metastatic prostate cancer in our institute. And background, prostate cancer is one of the most common disease worldwide. It accounts 1 out of 7 men, according to the American Cancer Society, were diagnosed with prostate cancer. The estimated 233,000 cases will be in 2014. In Saudi Arabia, prostate cancer is the 6th most common cancer in men. It accounts for 6.1 of all newly diagnosed cancer in Saudi male in 2010. Our objective of the study to see the clinical pathological characteristic of patient with metastatic prostate cancer treated in Brisbane Oncology Center, and to describe the treatment pattern for the patient and to see the overall survival in comparison to the international standards. Our method was to retrospective chart review for all the patients with prostate cancer at Prince-Moore Oncology Center between the year of 2000 and 2014. We reviewed 210 files. Our inclusion criteria was metastatic prostate cancer with adenocarcinoma subtype and treated in our centers. We did a descriptive analysis for multiple variants and Kaplan-Meier survival curve using the SPSS version 20. And the result showed that out of 210, only 81 cases met our inclusion criteria. 22 of them received a second-line therapy, and the rest received only hormonotherapy and best supportive treatment. The median follow-up for all the patients was 94 months, ranging from 37 to 61 months. And the clinical pathological characteristics showed that the median age at diagnosis was 71. Around 2/3 of the cases having more than 7 Gleason score. The median serum BSA was 117, and most of the cases had a bone metastasis. The hormonal treatment, either medical or castration resistant of all the cases, and the chemotherapy only showed that docetaxel in 27% of the patients, and methotrexate 6%, and abiraterone 12%. Half of the cases received palliative therapy, 63 received bisphosphonate. At the end of the study, only 24% of the cases were alive. So we compared the second-line therapy to the best supportive treatment, hormonal and palliative radiotherapy, and that found that only 22 cases received second-line therapy, either one or two agents. Well, docetaxel was 77%, methotrexate 23%, and abiraterone was 50%. And we found that in comparison to the best supportive group, the second-line therapy showed a younger patient was more likely to receive palliative radiotherapy and bisphosphonate. The median survival rate was significantly longer in the group of second-line therapy, with 29 months versus 15 months. And the estimated 5-year survival for the second-line therapy was 29 versus 22 for best supportive treatment. And when we compared our study to the TAX 327, we found that a similarity in the clinical pathological characteristics. In our study, the estimated 5-year survival was at 25%, and it was comparable to what found in the SEER data of the United States, around 28. So in conclusion, the clinical pathological characteristics and outcome of our patients with metastatic prostate cancer were comparable to previous findings. Second line of therapy might improve the median survival time for those patients significantly. Our limitation in the study was a small sample size. We had poor documentation and misvalue and loss of follow-up. Our recommendation to consider second-line therapy in fit metastatic prostate cancer patients, either chemotherapy, docetaxel, cabazitaxel, or a new androgen-targeted therapy like abiraterone or enzalutamide. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Faisal. I'd like to invite Dr. Shahbaz Mahmoud for presenting his podium presentation, surgical and oncological outcome after laparoscopic versus open nephrorectomy for non-metastatic upper TCC single center experience.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Dr. Shahbaz Mahmood, Assistant Consultant Urologist, King Faisal Specialist Hospital and Research Center, Riyadh. So I want to present surgical and oncological outcome of laparoscopic versus open nephrorectomy for non-metastatic upper tract urothelial carcinoma, single center experience. So just want to tell you a little bit the facts and figures regarding upper tract TCC. So urothelial carcinoma of the urinary tract ranked 5th in incidence after prostate, breast, and lung and colorectal cancer. Breast cancer accounts, bladder cancer accounts for 90 to 95% of the upper tract TCC, whereas upper urinary tract accounts for only 5 to 10% of the cases. So, exposure to tobacco increases the relative risk of developing upper urinary tract TCC from 2.5 to 7. Pyroclicial upper tract TCC are about twice as common as rectal tumors. So there is 70% of the cases develop concurrent bladder cancer with the upper tract TCC. So 22 to 47% of upper tract urothelial carcinoma patients develop bladder cancer, 2 to 6% in the completed upper tract. Almost 60% of the cases of upper tract TCC are invasive diagnosis as compared to 15 to 25% of bladder cancer. So upper tract TCC has a big age incidence, the age of 70 to 90 years, and 3 times more common in men. So what are the clinical issues? Laparoscopic versus open in terms of oncological, bladder cancer recurrence, cancer specific, and overall survival. So is there an increased risk of bladder cancer recurrence in a patient with preoperative who had preoperative diagnostic GRS plus minus biopsy? So this is our main goal. Differential effect of laparoscopic radical nephrouretectomy versus open radical nephrouretectomy and oncological outcome of radical nephrouretectomy remains controversial. So although there is recent multiple studies, all are almost retrospective ones, they suggested comparable oncological results between open radical nephrouretectomy and laparoscopic. Some studies report that there is a high incidence of bladder recurrence after in a patient who had a laparoscopic radical nephrouretectomy as compared to open. So we did a retrospective study in King Faisal Specialist Hospital. We almost recruited 50 patients from 2000 to 2016 who had undergone nephrouretectomy either open or laparoscopically. In 26 patients were included in group 1 who had gone open radical nephrouretectomy, and 24 laparoscopic radical nephrouretectomy were included in group 2. So we did a standard preoperative evaluations for the diagnosis and localization of the upper tract TCC. Both open and laparoscopic procedures were done in standardized technique. So our primary endpoint of the study, including the perioperative and oncological outcomes in both groups. So if we see response, there is no significant difference in terms of age, gender, BMI, smoker, and pre and post-operative creatinine and follow-up duration. But there is a significant difference in terms of operative time and hospital stay and blood loss, which favors the laparoscopic radical nephrouretectomy. So on the side of pathological stage and grade, you'll find there is almost comparable in stage and also in a grade in both groups. There is a little bit more aggressiveness on the side of open, but there is no significant difference. Pathological data in terms of tumors, size and local recurrence, bladder recurrence, and almost there is no significant difference. Multifocality and lymphomuscular LVM and Morgan status positivity and also the concurrent CAS in both groups are almost similar. So we found that in laparoscopic nephrouretectomy, local site recurrence was in 2 and open 4, bladder 8 and 10, and distant mets was found in 5 and 8. And there was no port site recurrence in the site of laparoscopic nephrouretectomy. So the most important things which we found in our study, the patient who had got preoperative ureteroscopy plus minus biopsy for the diagnostic purposes, in almost 29 patients, they got almost 14 patients they got recurrences in the bladder. And as compared to those patients who haven't got preoperative ureteroscopy plus minus biopsy. So there is no cancer specific death in both groups, almost comparable. So we conclude that in a median follow-up almost 76 months, the local recurrence has a trend to be more on the side of open radical nephrouretectomy, but statistically not significant. Bladder cancer recurrence-free survival and overall survival were not significantly different in both groups, and cancer-specific survivals in laparoscopic nephrovirectomy and local nephrovirectomy were 75 and 73.3% with no significant difference. But the significant difference was noted in terms of operated time, hospital stay, and blood loss in favor of laparoscopic radical nephrovirectomy. And the most important things we found in this study, there was a significant difference in a patient who had got a preoperative ureteroscopy plus minus biopsy. These patients got more bladder recurrences as compared to those patients who didn't undergo this diagnostic procedures. So in the last we conclude, the laparoscopic radical nephrovirectomy can benefit patients because of minimal invasiveness, and oncological outcomes are comparable to open nephrovirectomy, but preoperative URS and biopsy might be the risk factor for bladder recurrences after nephrovirectomy. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shahbaz, for presenting the experience in this uncommon disease. I would like to invite Dr. Hanan El-Monem and presenting the analysis of microsatellite, loss of heterogeneity in chromosome 8 and 9, and bladder cancer.
Heterozygosity on chromosome 8 and 9 in bladder cancer. This work is done from collaboration with Dr. Wael Siddiq, Prof. John Kraft, and me, Hanan Al-Monem. Bladder cancer is a heterogeneous disease developed with multiple genetic changes and alteration in tumor suppressor genes and oncogenes play an important role in tumor the bladder cancer carcinogenesis and the progression of bladder cancer. Loss of heterozygosity in tumor sample is believed to be a marker for the absence of functional tumor suppressor genes. Loss of heterozygosity can occur or identified in many human carcinoma, including bladder cancer. The incidence of bladder cancer worldwide was the 9th. In Egypt, it comes the 7th, with different pathological feature, like it's present as bulky fungating nodular mass with deep infiltration into the muscular wall, and rare papillary type may appear. Now in Egypt, transition cell carcinoma increasing in incidence over squamous cell carcinoma due to many factors, increased smoking, shifting from agricultural practice to industrial practice, and exposure to pollution. Our aim is to determine loss of heterozygosity in primary tumor of bladder cancer to identify candidate genes at areas of deletion. This is done by choosing paraffin blocks for primary bladder carcinoma and confirming histopathology diagnosis, DNA isolation, and fragment analysis to determine loss of heterozygosity. The material and methods including extraction of DNA from 43 formalin fixed paraffin embedded primary bladder cancer. 23 of them are transitional cell carcinoma and 20 are squamous cell carcinoma. Corresponding peripheral blood sample used as control, all are extracted in nucleus spin column. Then the PCR was done for amplification on specific microsatellite loci on chromosome 8 and 9. All the product of PCR were analyzed either on 2% agarose gel electrophoresis and then taken for fragment analysis at the CEQ 8000 automated sequence. Here are table of some of the microsatellite loci and the primers, forward and reverse primers used for each locus. Actually, there are many locus, more than this, but these are the representative one. Here are case of transitional cell carcinoma, low grade papillary type. Another case of transitional cell carcinoma, high grade. A case of squamous cell carcinoma, low grade with degenerated bilharzia ova. A case of squamous cell carcinoma, high grade, and all are stained with hematoxin and ACE. The last case is squamous cell carcinoma, high grade, and we notice there is muscular wall invasion. This table summarizes the clinical pathological variable. We notice here most of the cases of 56% are high grades, and also 51% are higher stage. The result, there is overall loss of heterozygosity for chromosome 8, 38% of the loci examined. Specifically at locus D8S85, which is chromosome 8 at the long arm 22 region. Another loci was detected, so expand the screen around the chromosome 8 at this locus 85, we examine more microsatellite loci. And the highest frequency also of deletion in chromosome 8 was 50% at the locus 1045. The frequency of deletion at chromosome 8 was related more significantly to transition cell carcinoma rather than squamous cell carcinoma, and also significantly correlated to the grade of the tumor, actually higher grade. However, no significant association between the loss of heterozygosity in chromosome 8 with the stage of the tumor, lymph node status, or the schistosomizes associated tumor. Here an example of 2% agarose there. You see here the normal tissue, 2 bands identified, and in tumor tissue there is deleted band and the only remaining band for loss of heterozygosity. When we take into automated sequence, this dye here is green, primer fluorescent dye. We notice this case from D8S85, 2 bands or 2 alleles are appearing from normal tissue. One is 70 base pair and the other is 76. After, in tumor tissue, only 1 band is detected, which is 70 base pair. The same here for another case, exploring another region at chromosome 887, only 1 allele persists in tumor tissue. So this is suggesting that tumor suppressor gene present in chromosome 8 may have a role in carcinogenesis and the progression of bladder cancer. The most important of them are angioprotein 1, green head-like 2 gene, zinc finger 706, and antizyme inhibitor tumor suppressor gene. For chromosome 9, the same result but with more increased frequency. It reached up to 67% at the locus 166 on chromosome 9. No statistical significance noticed for loss of heterozygosity either in transition cell carcinoma or squamous cell carcinoma. However, the frequency of deletion or loss of heterozygosity is more related to higher grade tumor. No statistical significance for lymph node status, for tumor stage, or schistosomizes associated cases. This is the agarose gene for the chromosome 9. Here is 2 bands in normal tissue, and this 1 band indicating loss of heterozygosity due to deleted band of the expected size. Here is on the automated sequence. This is normal tissue, 2 alleles. One is 92 base pair and the other is 98 base pair. In tumor tissue, 1 allele only persists, which indicating loss of heterozygosity. However, there are many also putative tumor suppressor gene on this chromosome 9. The most important, and we know how it affects tumor carcinogenesis in bladder, is B16, B15, deleted bladder cancer chromosome region 1, and tuberous sclerosis 1. And tuberous sclerosis 1 is concerning the expression of B27, and we know that B16, B15, B27 all concerning the cell cycle proliferation and activation and the hypermethylation in some bladder tumor. Our summary and conclusion: more than 1 tumor suppressor gene on chromosome 8 and 9 are involved in bladder carcinogenesis and more frequent with high-grade bladder cancer. The present study show no demarcation between schistosomizes associated and non-schistosomizes associated bladder cancer in terms of loss of heterozygosity of the tested microsatellite markers. It would be reasonable to identify the presence of some tumor suppressor gene at these areas and isolating them for future study. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hanan. I would like to invite Dr. Abdullah Anizi in the presentation of abstract of smoking is an independent risk factor for continent recovery in prostate cancer patient following robotic assisted radical prostatectomy. It's the long-term results of the Canadian cohort. Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Turki. I would like to thank the organizing committee for providing me this opportunity to
present a very important and underreported risk factor for continence recovery post radical prostatectomy. Actually, this study has been conducted by my colleague Imad Rajah and myself during our fellowship at the University of Montreal. So as we all know, the functional outcomes, including continence recovery after radical prostatectomy, are a major source of anxiety to patients. Several factors have been reported in the literature as predictors of continence recovery. Why is it significant, and why do we bother ourselves reporting these risk factors? Is because knowing these factors before surgery can help in patient counseling and to set reasonable expectations about continence recovery post-operatively, and also to plan for post-operative rehabilitation. So in this study, we aim to examine the impact of active smoking on continence recovery following robot-assisted radical prostatectomy. From our prospectively collected database, we retrospectively analyzed data of 322 patients who underwent robot-assisted radical prostatectomy between 2006 and 2015 by a single surgeon at Hôpital du Sacré-Cœur de Montréal. No one had previous prostate surgery or pelvic radiation, and we assist patients about continence recovery at different follow-up visits starting from 1 month up until 24 months post-operatively. Bladder, neck, and nerve preservation were performed whenever oncologically possible, and the maximal urethral length preservation was attempted in all cases. For the vesical urethral anastomosis, we used a bidirectional continuous V-lock suture. We tested all anastomoses with 180 cc of normal saline to rule out leak. And at the end of the procedure, size 20 French silicone catheter was inserted and removed in post-operative day 7. We evaluated several perioperative factors, including history of smoking, and then we correlated the relation between these factors and continence recovery in univariate and multivariate analysis. The primary endpoint was continence recovery, which was defined as 0 pads. We identified 322 patients. 44 of them were smokers, and 278 were non-smokers. The mean follow-up period was 49 months, and we did bladder neck preservation in 245 patients, and we did nerve preservation in 88.5% of the cases. In univariate analysis, smoking significantly correlated with continence recovery at 6 months post-operatively. In addition, bladder neck preservation and prostate size were also correlating with continence recovery throughout the follow-up period. This table shows the multivariate analysis, which showed that smoking history was an independent predictor for continence recovery. Not only that, but also prostate size and bladder neck sparing were also independent predictors for continence recovery. To the best of our knowledge, smoking, history of smoking was never documented before as a risk factor for continence recovery in any study in the literature. Our study is the first one to report a negative impact of smoking on continence recovery. This is a recent study from China on 440 patients
which did not show any correlation between smoking and continence recovery. Another study from Germany on over 700 patients, which also did not show any significant impact of smoking on continence recovery. The correlation between smoking and continence recovery was better documented in the gynecological literature, and this is a cross-sectional analysis of more than 83,000 women with urinary incontinence, which showed a negative impact of smoking on incontinence. Another study, actually a multi-center study from the US on over 600 patients, female patients with stress urinary incontinence, which showed a negative impact of smoking on continence recovery. So the mechanism by which smoking delays continence recovery is poorly understood. There have been some theories that stated reduced microvascular blood flow and reduced nitric oxide production. Also another theory proposed that chronic cough can unmask an otherwise quiescent disorder. As far as the bladder neck resection is concerned, several large-scale studies showed a significant relation between bladder neck resection and delayed continence recovery.
Can you conclude?
What about prostate size? Contradicting results in the literature have been reported. While some studies showed a strong relation between prostate size and continence recovery, others did not show. So in conclusion, bladder neck resection, smoking, and larger prostate size at the time of robot-assisted radical prostatectomy are important and underappreciated risk factors related to delayed continence recovery. Patients with those risk factors should be counseled about the risk of delayed continence recovery post-op, and further studies are required to investigate the pathophysiology behind post-prostatectomy incontinence in relation to smoking. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Abdullah. We'll invite Dr. Ahmed Mubaraki to present current status of robotic-assisted urological surgery in Saudi Arabia. Trends and opinions from a web-based survey.
Assalamu alaikum. I am Dr. Ahmed Mubaraki, urology resident R1 in King Fahd Hospital in Medina Munawwara. In a few minutes, I will talk about current status of robotic-assisted urologic surgery in Saudi Arabia, trend and opinions from an internet-based survey. Robotic-assisted surgery has gained worldwide popularity as significant addition to laparoscopy and minimally invasive surgery. Currently, RAS is most frequently used in urological and gynecological oncological surgery and has been successfully adopted in complex procedures involving prostate, kidney, and urinary bladder. The RAS has some limitations, such as lack of tactile feedback, fixed port system, longer operative times, cost barrier to widespread acceptance of robotics. Robotic surgery was first introduced in 2003 to Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. There are 10 installed robotic systems distributed as we show in map, 6 in Riyadh region and 2 in Western region hospitals and 2 in Eastern region hospitals. The present study aimed to assess current status of RAS in Saudi Arabia and evaluate perception of its importance and utility. Our method, an internet-based 59 items questionnaire emailed to urologists and training in Saudi Arabia in early 2015 inquire demographics and individual and institutional surgical practice of minimal invasive surgery with a focus of RAS and urological subtypes. Our results, the survey response rate was 40% with 95 survey completed, most of them are from Jeddah, around 38%. Most response were males with different level training, around 93% of males. 53% were formally trained in laparoscopic surgery, while 46% were formally trained in minimally invasive surgery beyond residency training, and only 21% were formally in robotic assisted surgery. 72% of participants felt RAS training should be required as a part of their career goals, while 37% stated the RAS would strengthen the department academically and financially. But absence of robotic system and administration disentrance with lack of support was most common deterrence. Nearly 34% of response cited the robotic-assisted radical prostatectomy as the gold standard for prostatectomy. Only 23% of response declared the robotic-assisted radical cystectomy to be gold standard for cystectomy. Only 17% of response cited the radical-assisted radical nephrectomy to be the gold standard for nephrectomy. In our study, we asked the urologist, if you or one of your family members need surgery, what will you recommend? We found about 73% recommended robotic for radical prostatectomy, 14% recommended laparoscopic, 11% recommended open surgery. For radical cystectomy, 50% recommend the robotic, 40% recommend an open surgery, and 9% recommend laparoscopy. For radical nephrectomy, about 56% recommend robotic surgery, and 34% recommend laparoscopic, and 8% recommend open surgery. Take-home message: urologists with different training levels has similar perception of RAS and indication of different surgical operations. Importance of robotic surgery training for career goals and development of robotic surgery specific program. In conclusion, urologists in Saudi Arabia recognize the importance of RAS over traditional surgical methods despite exposure, training, and availability constraints. This shows an emerging trend of acceptance of RAS by newer generation and willingness to incorporate the technology into practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. I'll invite Dr. Hussam Al-Nawahi to present his abstract on knowledge, attitude, practice of Saudi men towards testicular cancer and testicular self-examination in the western region of Saudi Arabia.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Hussam Al-Nawahi. I'm a graduate student from Baterji Medical College, currently in my internship here. It is my absolute honor to be presenting this paper in front of you. So before we start, let's go through the aim of this paper. The first one was to assess the oncology awareness regarding testicular cancer. The second one was to assess the knowledge and practice of testicular self-examination. And the third one was to spread the education among the public regarding these topics. We started this paper by designing a questionnaire composed of 3 sections. The first one has question about demographic data. The second one was about the knowledge of testicular cancer. And the third one was about the knowledge and practice of testicular self-examination. We then went to 2 different venues in 3 different occasions. 1,600 male subjects were interviewed, and our inclusion criteria included that all males should be more than 15 years of age. So let's go through the results. The first part is the demographic data. As you can see here, most of our subjects were between 20 to 24 years old. Again, almost 70% of them were single, and about 90% of them had either high school or college education. So now to the second part, the testicular cancer knowledge. The first question was a direct question. Do you think that it is possible to get testicular cancer? It was shocking to see that 61% did not believe that it was possible to have this type of cancer. So the next question was, what do you think is the risk factor of testicular cancer? If you can see here, 38% shows a history of prior trauma to the testis as a risk factor to the testicular cancer, whereas just less than 20% identified antecedent testicle as a risk factor. We then asked, have you ever been educated about the risk factor of testicular cancer? Almost 91% said that they had no education regarding this topic before. We then asked about the symptoms of testicular cancer. 23% said that a painless lump on the testicle would be an early symptom of testicular cancer. In another word, only 23% would identify a painless lump on the testicle when they do a testicular self-examination. The last question in this part was, do you think that testicular cancer has a cure? It was a split decision here, but the majority said that they didn't know. So the last part was the knowledge and practice of testicular self-examination. Again, the first question was a straightforward question. Have you ever heard about testicular self-examination? Shockingly, only 80% said no, they have never heard about it. We asked another question. How often do you perform testicular self-examination? Let's compare these two figures here. 90% said that they have never done it before, and just less than 1% said that they do it once a month. So the last question was, have you ever been educated about the benefits of testicular self-examination? Almost 17% said yes, that they have been educated, and about 50% of those were either educated by their physicians or at school. So this study represents the first study in Saudi Arabia to address such topic. It is very obvious that we have a significantly weak level of knowledge about testicular cancer. It is even less than previously described in other studies done in other countries. It is also obvious that we have a low level of knowledge and practice of testicular self-examination, where only about 20% have heard about it, and only 11% have performed it. So at the end, we come to a conclusion that education regarding testicular cancer and testicular self-examination is very lacking in Saudi Arabia. And there's a great role of physicians at school in delivering these messages to the community. This study was done in the United States, showed that only 17% of physicians actually taught their patient how to perform testicular self-examination. So my last point in this presentation is how to achieve the goal of our study. Now, given the excellent prognosis of some types of testicular cancer when discovered early, we'd like to encourage physicians to participate in the education of their patients. We'd also like to direct our attention toward public education, whether at schools, colleges, or even through public campaigns. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hassan. I would like to invite Dr. Sami Rashid for presenting the need to start awareness program for prostate cancer in Saudi Arabia with the era of 12 core biopsies.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Sami Rashid from Prince Sultan Military Medical City. I'm honored to present our study titled as the need to start awareness program for prostate cancer in Saudi Arabia, our result of 12 core prostatic biopsy. In background, in Saudi Arabia, prostate cancer is the sixth most common cancer among all men of all ages, and the most common cancer above 75 years. Notably, there have been a steady increase in the number of reported cases in the Saudi cancer registry over the past 2 decades. Our aim to investigate our data regarding prostate cancer diagnosis. So retrospectively, we collected transrectal ultrasound guided biopsy of the prostate
done our urology work from January 2012 till November 2016. Data analysis aim to see demographic data and prostatic specific antigen, digital rectal examination, histopathological analysis, management and present of distant metastasis. So our results showed that a total of 398 patients were analyzed. Mean age of patient underwent thrust biopsy was 69. Mean age of patient diagnosed with prostate cancer was 75. So we started the analysis of BSA. We subgroup BSA to 4 groups. First group BSA below 4. Second group BSA below between 4 and 10. Third group BSA between 10 and 20. Fourth group BSA more than 20. So as we see here, 92 patients BSA below 4, 37% of patients between 4 and 10. Between 10 and 20, it was 15% of patients, and 25% more than 20. So also we analyzed DRE examination. Abnormal DRE examination was found in 244 patients, represent 61%. Normal DRE found in 108 patients, represented 27%. Not documented cases of DRE examination was 12%. The main cause of non-documentation was our transition from paper filing system to electronic filing system. Regarding histopathological analysis, prostate cancer was found in 113 patients, representing 28% of patients. Benign prostatic hyperplasia was found in 193 patients, representing 48%, and chronic prostatitis in an 85% patient, representing 21%, and 7 cases of prostatic intraepithelial neoplasia. So we analyzed the prostate cancer cases, so localized or metastatic. We found that more than half of cases of prostate cancer were metastatic at time of diagnosis, and about 62 patients. With regard of further treatment, almost half of patients received hormonal therapy in 57 patients, hormonal plus radiotherapy in 22 patients, radical radiotherapy 16 patients, radical prostatectomy 9, active surveillance 4 patients, and 5 patients missed their follow-up. So now we correlated the BSA level to histopathological frequency, and we found that BSA below than 4, mainly the histopathological diagnosis came to be benign prostatic hyperplasia in 69 patients, representing 75%. With regard to BSA between 4 to 10, also the benign prostatic hyperplasia is the main histopathological prevalence in 81 patients, representing 55%. Chronic prostatitis next to it, 43 patients, representing 29%. Prostate cancer, 17 cases, 11%. BSA between 10 to 20, we found that benign prostatic hyperplasia was found in 42%, about 25% cases. Chronic prostatitis 19, representing 32%. Prostate cancer in 16 cases. With regard of BSA more than 20, we found that mainly the histopathology diagnosis came to be prostate cancer in 78%, only 18 cases of benign prostatic hyperplasia, and 4 cases of chronic prostatitis. And we correlated the DRE result to the histopathological frequency. We found that normal DRE, about 60 cases of revealed to be benign prostatic hyperplasia, representing 56%, 12 cases of prostate cancer, 11%, chronic prostatitis, 32 cases, representing 30%. Cases of abnormal DRE, we found that 112 cases of benign prostatic hyperplasia, representing 46%, 86 cases that confirmed to be prostate cancer, representing 35%. With regard to non-documented DRE cases, we found 15 cases of prostate cancer, chronic prostatitis in 9 cases, benign prostatic hyperplasia in 21 patients, and PI in 1 case. So we concluded that Despite the low incidence of prostate cancer in Saudi Arabia, the diagnosed cases usually late with metastasis. So we encourage to start an awareness program to increase the early diagnosis of prostate cancer. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sami.
Now we are starting with embryology section. First presenter is Dr. Abdul Rahman Al-Buraich. Does method of sterilization affect the durability of digital flexible retardoscope? Prospective comparative study between Sidex and Sterat.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, everyone. I would thank the committee for giving me the chance to present our study. Does method of sterilization affect the durability of digital flexible ureteroscope? It's a prospective comparative study between Sidex and Star. So the flexible ureteroscope durability was and is still controversy with variable number of users. There was many studies done in the previous recent years about measuring the durability of the ureteroscope, like procedures numbers, the lawful access, basket use, laser time, operative time, access sheet, and our topic, sterilization method. So our study was the evaluation of method of sterilization, if it will affect the digital flexible ureteroscope, and we are comparing two groups, two flexible ureteroscope, Sidex and the Star 100S. So it was a prospective study between January 2015 to June 2016. There was 88 procedures with the Flex XT from source, mostly male patients, 73. There was two flexible ureteroscope. Each one was used in group, one for Sidex with 59 procedure, and the second group with the Star with 29 procedure. There were two hospitals with two different sterilization methods. Single surgeon for the both two hospitals, and the CSSD were blinded. The endpoint of the study was the scope damage or 1 year of use. The flexible XC from stores were both new and only used for the study. So for the Sidex, as it was known, it's a chemical sterilization method, and it's used for the scope usually spending 25 to 30 minutes of the sterilization method for disinfection. But the Star 100S is a system used. There are many models. The one that's used in the hospital in this study is 100S, which using a cycle between 35 to 75 minutes with the low temperature heat system, which using the gas method, dry sterilization. So the result it was found. As you can see here, the gender and age body mass index were comparable in the p-value. The lateralization of the stone between the two groups, they were also comparable in the study, but didn't have any effect of the durability of the scope. The position of the stone were all comparable. As we know, the lower calyx stone, it's the main factor for the durability of the stone between the two groups. The stone burden was in the study ranging between 11.9 to 7.8 millimeter, plus minus with the range between 3 to 40 ml. The base tinted group were almost the same in the both groups. The operative time between the two groups were a little bit higher in the start group, the group 2, and the stone fee, it was almost comparable between the two groups with 84.1%. The access sheet use 10-12 was more in the South group, and 12-14 was more in the Sidex group. The duration of the access sheet use was almost the same, with no clinical significance, ranging between 5 to 95 minutes, with the mean of 35.1 plus minus 18. But the laser duration was higher in the start group with 16.3 minutes. So the scope life time between the Sidex group and the start group, the Sidex was with the scope there was for 59 procedures with 49 hours, and there was no damage in the scope with the Sidex sterilization as the year ended and the endpoint was reached. But in the start group, was 29 procedure only with 27 hours, and the damage was big, as you can see here in this picture here, in this area. So there was many studies that I mentioned in the introduction about in the previous recent years about the durability of the flexible ureteroscope. It was mentioning many factors with the expected life of 10 to 55 procedures in the flexible ureteroscopy. One of them, only one study was, only little studies mentioned about the sterilization method. Usually they focus more on the duration and laser time. More recent study, they were improving and studying that the scope can live to 100 procedure. And as you can here see by literature review, here in the literature review, there was many study, one of them by Traxa, with the Sidex group, which reached their study to 50 procedure. In our study, we reached 59 procedure. So in one study, they talked about the importance of sterilization method, especially Sidex, that it's an important thing for the hospital and urologist, and they need to be aware of the potential for flexible endoscope damage when using the sterilization system. So, conclusion in our study that the method of sterilization plays an essential impact, and we noticed that the Sidex prolonged the life of the digital flexible ureteroscopy more than STARD 100S. Thank you.
Today's presenter is Dr. Wissam Kamal. Stone retropulsion with whole nucleic laser and TMVAC lasers, a clinical practice-oriented experimental study.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Wissam Kamal from King Fahd General Hospital. This study was done in Patro during my time there. So we all know that the gold standard for recruiting stones is the laser holmium. So our objective was to compare the repulsion of the stones with the use of the holmium laser and the thulium in the settings, which could be used in the clinical practice. The experimental configuration included the glass tube, which was set in water bath filled with normal saline. A plaster of Paris stone weighing 0.07 grams were inserted into the tube. The thulium and holmium lasers were used along with a high-speed slow-motion camera. The lasers were activated with different settings, and the displacement of the stone were measured according to a custom-made algorithm. The results for the holmium, the repulsion of the stones was the lowest with the energy setting of 0.5 joules and the frequency of 20 Hz with the long pulse duration. And the highest repulsion was observed in the case of 3 joules, 5 Hz, and short pulse mode. In the case of the thulium, the repulsion of the stones was the lowest with the energy setting of 1 joule and the frequency of 10 Hz with either long or short pulse duration. And practically, there was no repulsion at all. The highest repulsion rate with the thulium was observed in the case of 8 joules, 5 Hz, and short pulse. The table here shows the results for the holmium lab. As we can see, when we use the same energy level and the same frequency level, the repulsion was highest with the short pulse duration. And when we use the same energy level and the same pulse duration, the repulsion was highest with the lower frequency rates. And when we use the same frequency level for both and the same pulse duration, the repulsion increases with higher energies. In the case of the thulium, as we mentioned earlier, with the different settings, most of the results are 0 or 0.02, which is non-significant. The highest was with the energy of 8 and frequency of 5 and the short pulse duration. This graph was used by chemical engineering to measure the distance of the repulsion. Here we used the same energy level and the same pulse duration with different frequencies. In graph A, the frequency was 5 Hz, and in graph B, the frequency was 10 Hz, and in graph C, the frequency was 20 Hz. And as you can see, the repulsion was the highest with the lower frequency. Here's another graph. The displacement values with the different Holman mag laser setting are presented. In graph A and B, it was with 2 joules and 5 hertz in short pulse mode and 2 joules and 5 hertz in long pulse mode. Higher displacements observed in the case of short pulse mode in comparison to long pulse mode. Here is the experimental setup. The first figure, the water bath with the camera during the experiment, and in figure 2, it's another perspective of the same experiment. In conclusion, Holman mag laser has a linear increase in star repulsion with increased pulse energy. On the other hand, the repulsion rate was kept to minimal with a thermal up to energy level of 8 joules. The activation of lasers with short pulse resulted in further displacement of the stone. Lower frequency with the same power settings seemed to result in further star repulsion. And the higher power with the same frequency setting resulted in further displacement of the stone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is the next presenter here, Dr. Abdul Hakim? He's not here. Not here. And we can go with Dr. Fares Al-Harbi, the rate and cause of the direct admission from the day case surgery unit for urology procedures. Is here? Hasli Kabul.
Did not show up.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I'm Dr. Fares Al-Harbi. I'm going to present my research. It was done in Bin Sultan Military Medical City in Riyadh. So we'll start from background. The day surgery unit provides high quality patient care with excellent patient satisfaction, shorter hospital stays and early mobilization. Thus will reduce the rate of hospital-acquired infection and venous thromboembolism, as well as offering shorter waiting times for surgery and lesser risk of cancellation. So we collected the data from April 2014 to October 2016. All the patients who were admitted to the hospital from the day surgery unit after being offered a day case urological procedure, assessed fitness by anesthetist at initial consult. We collected their following data: type of procedure, patient demographic data, comorbidities, and intraoperative course of anesthesia and surgical procedure. This is the acceptance criteria done in our hospital for a day surgery case. Our primary endpoint is to evaluate the rate and cause of admitting our patient who came for a day case urological procedure. The result came as we did around 1,926 procedures and 1,192 cystoscopies, 285 ureteroscopies, and 275 shockwave and 174 open surgeries. 533 procedures were done under general anesthesia, 739 under sedation, and 654 under local anesthesia. So the result came as only 20 patients, which equal 1%, were directly admitted post-operative from a day case unit, with the mean age of the patient was 52 years, 12 males and 8 females. 12 patients were admitted due to surgical causes. 6 patients we found there is a bladder mass that needed an unplanned resection. 4 patients had a pus coming from the ureteric orifice and were admitted for antibiotic and observation, and 2 patients had bleeding and that needed 3-way catheter and irrigation. 8 patients admitted due to medical causes. 6 patients had uncontrolled blood pressure post-operative, and 2 patients developed allergic reaction during the procedure. So our conclusion for the study is the day case urological procedure are effective and feasible with a low unplanned admission rate and minimal risk or complication requiring direct admission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now we can go with the next one. Dr. Saad Al-Vesali, spinal versus general anesthesia for laser flexible ureteroscopy, prospective view over the outcome, cost and tolerance.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Dr. Saad Al-Wisali, urology resident at National Guard Hospital Al-Hassan. It's an honor to present our study, spinal versus general anesthesia for laser flexible ureteroscopy. It's a prospective view over the outcome, cost, and tolerance. On behalf of the National Guard Hospital Al-Hassan, Urology Department and Anesthesia Department. Our objective is to compare the safety, the tolerance, and the outcome between general versus spinal anesthesia in laser flexible ureteroscopy. Patients and method, it was done between January 2015 to October 2016. It's a prospective trial between 60 patients, 31 spinal versus 29 general. 64 procedures, stage therapy, follow-up 6 weeks post-removal of double J stent, stone-free, less than 3 millimeter, and done by single surgeon. The standard anesthesia protocol for general anesthesia and spinal anesthesia. General anesthesia, they use fentanyl at 0.01, 0.02 milligram per kg, propofol at 2 microgram per kg, and a muscle relaxant. Spinal anesthesia, hyperbaric bupivacaine 10 milligram, and fentanyl 25 milligram to L3 to L4 space. It's a pre-op planning. We use 2 flexibles, FlexX2 and FlexXC, and unital access sheet, irrigation, guide wires and baskets, and laser. Pain was using a visual analog pain score from 0 to 10 at 2 to 6 hours and at 24 hours. Complications were evaluated by Cleveland-Dindu classification. Cases, we have example of a spinal anesthesia case, 11 millimeter stone, as you can see here, at the lower pole was migrated to the upper pole, and laser lithotripsy was done as you can see here. Example of general anesthesia, 26 millimeter right renal stone in a single session, and as you can see here also. Our results, there is no significant difference between general and spinal anesthesia in the term of age, BMI, stone burden, house feel. However, there is a significant difference between general and spinal anesthesia in the access sheet duration, which was longer in that spinal anesthesia. Also, the cost was much cheaper in spinal anesthesia. Also, in the ASA score, there is a significant difference between general and spinal anesthesia. Also, in favor of spinal anesthesia, there is no difference in pre-stenting and site. And there is also in the pain score at 24 hours, there was no difference between general and spinal anesthesia. However, there was a difference from 2 to 6 hours in favor of spinal anesthesia. Pain score was higher at spinal anesthesia. Success rate of general anesthesia is 96.8% and almost 91% in spinal anesthesia. Surgeon satisfaction in the form of maneuverability, visibility, and procedure. So 1 is very easy and 5 is very difficult. General anesthesia showed more surgeon satisfaction than spinal anesthesia. Coming over to the complications, there was one in spinal postoperative fever. In general, there were no complications. There were studies published comparing between spinal and general anesthesia, but in PCNL. In the Journal of College of Physicians and Surgeons in Pakistan, 2008, the article was ureteroscopy, but it was semi-rigid. There was a flexible case, retrograde intrarenal surgery, which has the same result as our result had comparing spinal and general anesthesia, and the cost, which was much cheaper than spinal anesthesia. So our conclusion, finally, both general anesthesia and spinal anesthesia are effective and safe in flexible ureteroscopy. The spinal anesthesia has less success rate and increased consumption of analgesia, however has low cost. On the other hand, general anesthesia, as you can see here, provides more satisfaction to the surgeon and excellent result. However, more patients and randomization should be conducted to confirm the findings and for better results. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next presenter, please, Dr. Khalid Al-Otaibi, to review the complications of laparoscopic urological procedures performed by a single surgeon during a 12-year period.
السلام عليكم. Okay. Really, I'm pleasure to see all those young neurologists, presenting very interesting papers, and really, I do encourage them, in fact, to go on. Okay. Now, an old urologist, old-fashioned urologist, giving his experience over the 20 years with laparoscopic urological procedures for 411 patients. The objective to review the complication of laparoscopic urological procedure performed by a single surgeon during the last 21 years. And in fact, we started our laparoscopic procedures in 1996, and this is the first laparoscopic radical nephrectomy performed at Saudi Aramco in 1996. And as you see, our incision to retrieve the kidney from the para-umbilical incisions, and confine successful free margin renal cell carcinoma. Methodology: data collected for each patient, including patient age, ASA scores, length of stay, etc., etc. Complications during and after laparoscopy were identified and recorded. It's a retrospective study, and in fact we collected the data from 1996 till December 2016. This is include different variety of laparoscopy, including varicoceles, nephrectomies, including simple, partial, radical, and nephrectomy, renal cyst ablation, and pelvic lymph node dissection at the era of prostate cancer in the early 1996. So the result, a total of 38 complications of 411 procedures, which a rate of around 7% occurred in 26 patients. We classified major and minor. Major consists of 3.9% and minor 5.3%. Mortality, we had mortality, 2 patients died. And in fact, those 2 patients happened during the early phase of our laparoscopic. At that time, we didn't have the ligature or the harmonic, devices. We used to have the cautery and the hook, to dissect. And 1.2% the conversion rate for uncontrolled bleedings. This is sample, including also a pediatric. This is a laparoscopic nephrectomy in the pediatric non-functioning kidney because of reflux. Adrenalectomy, we have around 334 cases. So major intraoperative complications: vascular injury, injury to the diaphragm in 2 patients, bowel laceration in 2 patients, pancreatic injuries in 2 patients, a major post-operative complication, urine leak, pelvic lymphocele. And this is explained the type of procedures, and the number, and as I mentioned, including pediatric and adult. In fact, our conclusions, we found that the complications, happened with the difficulty cases. So if the case is difficult, then the complication rate is high. It's not really because of, big tumor or, renal thrombus, such and such. Like most of those difficult cases and mortality happen those with simple nephrectomy. It's recurrent pyelonephritis, and dissection was difficult, and patient had a mortality because of that. And this is complication based of the ASA and longer stays. And I don't want, for the time's sake, I have video to show you how to have the complications. And this is another table showed, according to the European scoring system. And I'm going to show you two videos for bleeding and diaphragmatic. Okay. This is a complication of laparoscopic adrenalectomy where we had, bleeding. And as you see now, this is the adrenal mass, and trying to, free the adrenal. And I hate this suction, the middle one, because your assistant trying to help you, and suddenly, you get injured the adrenal vein or branch of it. And in fact, also this is during our early, laparoscopic adrenalectomy. And in such case, what we did, we increased the intra-abdominal pressure, and we kept the scope in, and in fact, the pressure controlled the bleeding. And when we get back, we try to do the dissection from different angle. This is a superior angle. As you see now, the bleeding stopped. We did not put any clip, anything. So we managed to tackle the adrenal gland from the renal vein. But we had two cases, where we had to convert to open. If you find any difficulty, don't hesitate to go for open. This is, injury of the diaphragm, and this has happened. We were trying to do partial nephrectomy for a mass in the upper kidney, and during the release of the upper pole, and we are using the harmonic scalpels, we got into the diaphragm. As you see, now the diaphragm is injured. So what we did, in fact, we completed, in fact, we converted from partial to radical nephrectomy, and we got the thoracic surgeon asking his advice. He said, if you can suture this laparoscopy, then we tried, and we did repair the diaphragm laparoscopically. As you see, we did not need to have, a chest tube. And the other case, managed to repair the diaphragm laparoscopically, but we had to leave a chest tube. Lastly, this is, bowel injury. During, releasing the bowel on the left side, and it happened, the harmonic device, caused this laceration. It's not complete deep, it's up to the serosa. And also, we managed to control this endoscopically with laparoscopic suturing. Lastly,
we are a little bit out of the time, sir.
Conclusion, even though the complication rate in this series was comparable to those of other studies in literature, yet it remains higher than that of open surgery. The continuing advances of laparoscopic techniques will reduce the complication rate and will pave the way of laparoscopy to replace most currently practiced open urological surgery. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now the last abstract presentation, Dr. Saeed bin Hamdi, prospective randomized controlled trial of non-lead-free drape for radiation protection in retrograde intrarenal surgery, stone procedures. Drape for the patient or drape for the doctor? Drape for the patient or drape for the doctor? This drape is... Okay, thank you.
So, thank you again for this chance. So I will be presenting a prospective randomized controlled trial of novel lead-free drape, Radionex, for radiation protection in retrograde intrarenal surgery stone procedures. So the X-ray was discovered in the 19th century, and since that time it was assisting the clinical medical practice, and it was evolving and assisting more further and further with the clinical diagnosing and management. So operating under fluoroscopy guidance, it is an important part and integral part from the urology procedure, especially urethrostomy, changing or inserting a double J stent. The surgeon, the urologist especially, and everyone in the room during urology procedure using C-arm, they are exposed to scatter radiation. So safety measures was made, which include things that we usually use as urologists, which is apron, glasses, neck shield, and gloves. And it was recommended in many studies that for the urologist to be as low as reasonably achievable principle for using a fluoroscopy. So our objective in this study to evaluate objectively the effect of using Radionex sterile radiation shield applied on the patient in terms of this decreasing scatter radiation exposure to the surgeon. As you can see here in the picture, it's the area that we colored in red. This is the drape, it's a sterile drape, we put it in the patient directly after putting the original routine full drape. So the method, it's a prospective study from March 2015 to October 2016. It was randomized between two groups. The study, which we applied the drapes, the Radionex, versus control group. The study group included 54 procedures, control included 48 procedures. The mean age was 44.8. We measured the scattered radiation with the dosimeters, 3 dosimeters. One was in the forehead, the second one was in the chest under the apron, the third one was in the leg. There was a single C-arm machine in all patients with the same distance between the C-arm and the urologist to not to have bias. So here more picture showing the drapes in different patients. So here to clarify, this is the dosimeter we used. As you can see here, the D1 in the forehead, the D2 behind the apron and the chest, and the D3 on the leg. So our result, procedure number in total was 102. The BMI of the patient and the age was comparable between the two groups. Most of the procedure were urethrostomy with 96%, and 4% with double J stent insertion. Procedure time was a little bit higher in the control group, and the fluoroscopy time was also a little bit higher in the control group with no clinical significance. So the result of the reduction in the radiation, which is the main aim in our evaluation, showed that the radiation dose emitted from the C-arm itself was 48.8 in the control group and 51.6 in the study group. The dosimeter 1, which is in the forehead and the head, showed a reduction with the use of the drapes, 30%, which was with clinical significance. But in dosimeter 2, which is in the chest below the apron, was only 20% with no clinical significance. Dosimeter 3 on the leg was the reduction only 21% with no clinical significance. So in conclusion, the radiation attenuation drape, Radionex, can be used for protection in the urology procedure, the retrointrarenal surgeries, but it's insignificantly decreased the radiation exposure by urologists by 20 to 30%. And this study on the Sodinex, it's the novel study. Up to our knowledge, it was not done before in any other area because we used it on the in the almost same year of the making the Sodinex product. But of course, our number of the procedure is around 100, so we need more procedure to perform and to re-evaluate this drug again to conclude our result.
How is the price? How is the price? How many dollars?
Around 500 Saudi riyal. So it's around 500 Saudi riyal. So it's not very cost effective actually with this reduction of result.
Thank you very much. Now we have a short break for prayer and coffee, and then we will meet. Sorry, sir, no break. You are very hard.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum. Several announcements. Number one, I really like to add my voice to Dr. Atib regarding the resident. I was really impressed with the resident presentation by young chap. Very, very impressive. The material was excellent. The way they talk is excellent. The English is excellent. So we'd like to see more and more and more of you young guys presenting in this meeting. The old age guys, will be retired somehow. You will have to take it over. Number two, please, in the end of talk, give us your USB. I really beg you, أعطيني USB. I'm sitting there, no USB, my heart rate, where is the paper, where is the petition? Please, I'm an old man, I have coronary artery disease, I don't want to die on table over there, okay? So help me. The gala dinner again, meeting at 7 o'clock in M2, اللي هو حق المال reception area. Tomorrow's meeting, هيكون من 7:30 ل 8:15 will be talk by Lily ومعها breakfast, but we will start our session here at 8:15. So please 8:15. There will be a prize of 10,000 riyal for the best paper presentation like the one from today. It will be given tomorrow afternoon after we finish the other paper presentation. Finally, الرحلة السياحية it will be في entrance of the hotel at B2, B as in ball 2 ناحية النفق. The bus you have تجتمعوا الساعة 4:30. The bus will leave at 5 o'clock. Then it will take 3 hours.